स्वप्न से किसने जगाया, स्वप्न से किसने जगाया, मैं सुरभि हूं, छोड़ कोमल फूल का घर, ढूंढती हूं कुंज निर्झर, पूछती हूं नभ दरा से, क्या नहीं ऋतुराज आया। नवजीवन का संगीत बहा, पुलकों से भर आया दिगंत, मेरे सपनों की निधि अनंत, मैं ऋतुओं में न्यारा वसंत. That was Mahadevi Verma on Vasant, on spring, the great legend of Chayavad, one of the fourth pillar of Chayavad in Indian, Hindi poetry. It was one of those March days when the sun shines hot and the wind blows cold, when it is summer in the light and winter in the shade. That was Charles Dickens in The Great Expectations, talking about the spring. So, good evening and welcome to Sheetalnath Conversations. You are witnessing our 99th historic illustrious show, a show that traverses through the far and close time spaces, unraveling the known, unknown, forgotten, forlorn contours of our civilization. Those are sunk deep into the slumber of the anatomy of our civilization. Spring is at advent. Spring is beautiful. Spring is gorgeous. It is romantic. It has its romantics. It has its symphony. It has its music. The brooks, they sing. The meadows are green. Spring is beautiful. And spring is knocking at our door. And this gives a very rejoicement and a very great amusement to all human minds, because spring is something which is fresh, which brings something fresh, something new, something rejuvenated, something joyful and blissful, something of hope. So I take this moment of celebrous moment of spring, advent of spring, in gratitude, and with utmost gratitude, I really greet all the wonderful people who are the admirers and followers and associates of Sheetalnath Conversations. Certainly, this is going to be a wonderful. This has been a wonderful time together since last 3 years, and we have ambled through many arenas, many areas. I wish everybody a very wonderful springful spring, life full of the spirit of spring, of joy. I'm here once again with this, that my little humble yet precious and colorful biscope that would take you to this, that would make you to, travel in time, and through different contours and different moods of our civilization. This is especially these enthralling and thought-provoking conversations which we are having, being conducted for the guests of people of great minds of our times, with honesty, integrity, intelligence, and vision. And we have been able to trace and find the shades of civilization, whether it was music, art, culture, literature, uh, aquatechnology, landscape, cliffs, moods, sociology, Indology, sociology, ancient wisdoms, modern wisdoms, legends, icons, maestros, colors, transitions, treatises, travelogues, chronicles, sociology, folklore, memories, monarchies, and transitions, and many other shades which have been genuinely trying to touch in Sheetalnath Conversations, and our guests of great repute, great reputation. And having said that, I would like to say that, this part of the country, as we all know, I have been talking about it n number of times. I've talked about it in the opening of my show, that this part of the country has always been, great cathedral, cradle, and crown of Oriental civilization, Indian civilization. It has been a place through which this entire wisdom from here went to the Caspian Sea, up to the Far East, to Rhodesia, to Eurasia, and other places. and we have the signs all over. And our knowledges, our wisdoms went from here, and they were enveloped in their local culture, and then it came back. That came back. That's how the synthesis and the human races move, and they interchange and interact. And we had read many stories. I need not to tell it again and again, be it the Sharda Desh, and be about the great people from Nagarjuna to Kalhana, to the great writer Kalhana. And apart from contemporary writers and visitors, you could see the Vasu Gupta, Abhinav Gupta, all the great list was there, great, very impressive list. And their works are the volumes and volumes of wisdom of the works that stand. In fact, I feel indeed Kashmir in those times was like a Silicon Valley, and people used to come there. It was blessed, and they used to create something. People for Hayam and Sharang, they went. His forefathers came from Kashmir, and you have this Kumarajivi and thousands of monks and people. They went from here and spread this wisdom. Having said that, I'd like to say today, I sometimes feel when I go back to my younger days, I have a very misty reminiscence when I was a 6-year-old person, and I remember we lived in the Sheetalnath on the uphill side of Sheetalnath, and that was known as Teng. Kashmiri, we call it Teng. And I still remember the faint idea, the people thronging into our patio, into our Kashmiri, we call it Wuz, the entry to the Batak, and then the boots of the army boots just moving all over, sounding all over. I remember those sounds, and I remember the rescue operation done in the last day, and people singing songs along with Punjab police coming in. There were two inlets to that great, wonderful, land of Sheetalnath, which was always known as center of art, culture, art, literature, art, culture, and newspapers, politics, sociology. It was in a way one of the political centers of Kashmir. One third of the political sides. Agnishekar very well said that this was one third pivot of the Kashmiri politics was Sheetalnath. So it was a wonderful place, and I have those memories. Then I later on corroborated it with many people, and everybody has a story about Sheetalnath, and many people wrote articles. But yes, we didn't have a very comprehensive, understanding, comprehensive, in-depth, complete book structure of Sheetalnath, that Andolan, which was known as 1967 Andolan. Just 5 years after the agitation, that 1967 famous agitation, which shook the entire world, its reviews used to come into the BBC, and the government was, it was in a very bad shape, and finally it failed. But this was an agitation by Kashmiri Pandits, and after 5 years, there was another Sathu boy or Sheetalnath boy who was born from a very prominent family of, this Sheetalnath, who still are taking care about the premise of Sheetalnath. And he was born, and many years after, 58 years, he comprehended everything and researched with his meticulous modern tools, modern paradigms of research, and scientific methods of research, and finally came out with wonderful book, that was wonderful script, that was 1967 ka this Parmeshwari Andolan. So I'm talking about Ashish Kaul. Ashish Kaul, who doesn't know Ashish Kaul? I'm talking only about one aspect of him, literary side. Ashish Kaul is a big, a personality as far as the corporate world is concerned in India. He's a top niche, top brass corporate leader. He has been in the corporate business for the last 30 years, and he has been dealing with the organization being at the helm of affairs, the global organizations, in very wide spectrum of corporate work, wide spectrum of works, diversified work. He's a man with many virtues and a multifaceted personality. At a very young age, he rose to the corridors of power in the corporate world, and he's a name to be reckoned with. And he has a very, it is said that he's the bedrock of, personal and the professional life, excellence of personal and professional life. We are proud of him, native. And there are many things about him. There is one thing very great about him, such a great corporate leader who could just choose a life of comfort and, that corporate culture, live in that corporate culture. But he cut the loop, and he went to his the inquisitive mind, probably searched back to the history, the corridors of history, went back to the legacies of our history, especially in this part of the country, and he has come out with wonderful six best-selling books, and those published by the very largest, circulatory this publishing houses of India. And those books have been, released by the great personalities like Amitabh Bachchan, the Didda, the Warrior Queen, has been, presented by the Amitabh Bachchan, one of the great icon of film industry, one of the legend of film industry. He has released that book, and then the Union Ministers of Information and Information Broadcasting and HRD, they also have released his books, Refugee Camp and GULAB, RAKHT, and then the Prabhu Suresh Prabhu is one of the very great parliamentarian and member parliament, and he has released his 67 ka Andolan. He's with the he's engaged with the great project of STREE Desh, in which he's exploring the very great legendary personalities, women personalities of Kashmir in the past. He treads through the entire history, maybe from the first women queen, I've forgotten his name, from that onward to the Kota Rani and Rani Didda and other places. So I think his research is very extensive, it's very authentic, it has been appreciated not only by the press but the people who read it. So he is a man who has been writing columns in the very respectable dailies and newspapers of the country, which including India Today, Hindustan Times, Delhi Excelsior, and this Amar Ujala and many other papers. And he has got a tremendous honorarium, awards, rewards being given for his service to the corporate world as well as to his to the field of literature. So he is a different sect, modern, authentic, honest researcher. He's also a very wide spectrum of qualifications at his back. He has moved from hotel management to the history, from history to the sociology, from sociology to business management. He's a PhD and has been he's also senior senior researcher, senior research fellow in the Ministry of Culture, where he deals with his subject is that of preservation of ecosystem of minorities in Kashmir, ecosystems, cultural and social ecosystem minorities in Kashmir. So he has many wings. I'm amazed at how does he fly. I mean, which wings does he use and when? So something great about him, something be proud about him. But only that one aspect about him is that he has his books are in great demand, and this could be something very special to have him today on our show. And he has got many awards. I don't have the complete list with me, but still I can say few of them are here. It will be very unjust to not to I mean just inform you guys about these awards he has received. He's a recipient of prestigious awards of recognition: Man of Excellence Award 2020 for outstanding contribution education, arts and culture by Achievers Forum. Responsible Business Leader 2012 Award and Corporate Affairs Leadership Award 2012 by Asian Confederation of Business and Thought Leaders. This is a very important award. Also recipient of commendation by the Honorable Prime Minister of India and Honorable Governor of Maharashtra for personal social service initiatives. Well networked within the Indian media and power corridors. That's all we know all about him. And he's a columnist, as I've already told. He has been writing very wonderful columns, and his education is very widespread. I don't know, probably it is because of his inquisitive mind, his upbringing, his being a Shidalnathian, his being a Kashmiri, his being what. All these things we are going to explore while we bring him in live in conversation with me. So let's all welcome with great affection and love our own native man, son of the soil, the person who rose to many higher echelons of this corporate world, and now he's a great writer, and he has many other facets as well. Let's welcome to the Sheetalath Conversations. Ashish ji, you are welcome to the 99th Sheetalath Conversation show. It's a great delight to have you with us. Hello, Ashish ji. I think he's frozen.
Are you able to see me?
Hello. I think there is some problem issue, network issue at his place, but I'll call him again.
Are you able to see me, hear me?
Yeah, it's a frozen
Are
picture,
you?
but your audio is coming, but the picture is frozen. Hello?
Picture is frozen.
Yeah, yeah. You can reconnect again, come out and reconnect again. Maybe that way it will be possible to.
Okay.
So let's wait for some time. Ashish is joining us again, and probably there's a network issue at his place. Ashishji, you're welcome into the 99 Shitalath Conversation show. It's a great delight and honor to have you on my show. You are a Sathubai,
The
I'm a Sathubai. So Sathubais meet again. Yeah.
honor is absolutely mine, and I heard you when you said it was the 99. So the Rubicon has been achieved. So it is the most, in statistics, we say the most difficult thing is to achieve 99. And then the whole world opens up. I really wish you all the very best, especially in the times that we live in. It is extremely difficult to do the kind of work that you do. Having spent about 30 years in doing what I do, I cannot imagine how you are able to do this, because to do what you're doing is exceptionally difficult, more so from a perspective that uh, the entire world, all of us put together, the first challenge has been to fend for ourselves.
That's
Everything
true.
else comes later. So to be able to do, to be able to think the way you do, it's very humbling. Thank you very much for doing what you do.
Thank you, Ashish. Thanks a lot. God bless you. So, really, it's a great delight to have you with us. But once again, I would like to say, first of all, before I move forward, there is a one question because you are like a younger brother. You are a lot more than a decade younger to me. So, as I said, that I was born, I was 6 years when agitation was there, and you were born 5 years after the agitation. So, there is a 10, 12 years difference there. So, I would like to say that you've risen to the echelons of corporate world in a very short period of time. Of course, there's a lot much research, a lot much hard work will be there, and then you are a research of ancient and modern history, and you become a great author. How could you define yourself? These are not they don't appear to be two wings. They are not in collinearity with one another. So how do you define yourself? How would you like to define yourself? In a one word, two word, it's a lighter vein. Nothing, nothing,
I
nothing.
really don't know. Maybe what really defines me, if you really put me to the wall, I'll say Sheetalnath is that one word that defines me. Every
What?
being of me, it's very difficult for. I guess it would be for all of us, more so for me. Uh, if there is that one word, not two, that defines me, it is Sheetalnath that defines me. It continues to define me, and it has always influenced the kind of work that I've done. This one word is more than enough. I really don't need two words. One word is more than
Nice.
enough. I can still, it may sound cliche, but I can still draw a map of the entire mohalla, my home, every gully, with all the paraphernalia that went into those gullies. I can still, it's so strange. I can wake up and I can actually feel that. I can smell that, no matter how repulsive it was. But I really can. I just have to close my eyes, and I can transport myself right into the era, right into the time that we were there.
Time and space.
It's very difficult for me to be anything but somebody from Shitala. the elders that we had, the kind of people that I grew up, they all define who I am.
Hello, hello, Ashish. Hello.
Are you able to see me, hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, suddenly this first time in this program, this has happened. I don't know. It has never happened earlier. Shitala's word is so
99.
heavy. I thought that you are at least continuing at your end and you will be doing it extempore because my first question had to come like that. So then again, if such things happen, please continue. Huh?
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So thank you very much once again. I would like to begin with the Shitalath. You've given a beautiful definition. I mean, it got disconnected in between. I really wanted to. It will be in the record there. But I would like to ask you one thing. Your father, like my father, because after 6 months of my birth, I went to the pony park. My first, I was 6 months old, and my name was put Jugal Kishore by a Dogra mother there, because Jugal Kishore is very
Yeah,
uncommon name in Kashmiri.
it is a Dogra
Like
name.
your father, yeah, we moved to many places, and Madhopur was also one of my place where my uncle lived. I have spent some years there, and many places in Gandhinagar in Jammu. But you have also moved. I have heard that your father also was. I mean, he was posted into many parts of the state. So you're very fortunate enough. A sensitive writer within you must have been. You must have been sensitized then again, going into the different moods and places across the valley, in the villages, in the towns, and then back to the Sheetalnath. Tell us something about your witness of Kashmir as a young Ashish, from the times when you were born, and then to the places and institutions, the inspirations, and all of the landscape, the festivals, uh, the way you wanted to, you felt it. Let's all fly together towards your childhood.
So essentially, the journey that began from the valley, I mean, it took me all across the valley along with my father, and mostly I think I was fortunate enough to travel and live uh, across the valley, across the length and breadth of the valley, right from Udis to the Sonamarg and to Anantnag and to various other places. Uh, those were very interesting times. I think we were living in the golden age, right through the 70s to up to the events of 1990. Those were the times. In retrospect, I can visualize that everything had settled down. The complex ecosystem of Kashmir had learned to live with each other. So there was no apparent, nothing that hit you in the face. Yes, but I know, I can see that, I can feel that now, that there was a huge difference between living in, let's say, in Srinagar, living in Baramulla, and then having to
Yes,
live in Anantnag. It was completely different. I had two distinct stays in Anantnag. One was a part while I was in the primary school, and then one was the run up to the 1990. We were there for about 3 years because my father was posted, Papa was posted in Sumbal area, right up to, in between there was Sumbal, Kangan, Sumbal, Gond, and then Sonamarg would come in. So I've lived there, but nothing as hitting you in the face as Anantnag was. That was the time that Anantnag was no longer called as Anantnag; it was called as Islamabad, even to the extent that the shopkeepers would write as Islamabad. The nomenclature was Islamabad. Most importantly, which if you put in perspective now, it is that even the JK State Transport Corporation, the buses that would run, they would write Islamabad. They would not write Anantnag. So it was, I
oh,
think, because of Anantnag was always the hotbed of terror.
but
Uh,
I have heard that that bus conductor sometimes speaking and crying, putting these scores, anaknag, 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 anaknag. Also, sometimes I used
very,
to hear.
very rarely you would hear. But yes, there were these. Good, you reminded me. By then, I think towards the end of 80s and those last 2 or 3 years, Swaraj Mazda had made a debut on that route. So there
Yeah,
would be those small little buses, those 12-seater buses who would ply. They would sometimes, they would operate from Srinagar, from Batmalu to Avantipura to Anantnag, or very few directly, because it made a lot of sense for them to carry shorter load. So they would say Anantnag, but mostly they would say Islamabad. what
Islam.
would
Yeah.
what you would see and identify with is a board that would say Islamabad written in Urdu. That was about it. And I think there was a lot of because it had seen, Anantnag had seen back-to-back incidents of communalism. I think 85, 86, and then just before 88 also there was a incident involving a Hindu family. There was an issue with a girl or something like that. And then the run up to the 88 end was very bad in Anantnag. I mean, it was not that bad elsewhere, but Anantnag being, you see, the advantage or rather the disadvantage for peacekeepers in the valley is it is right at the tip of South Kashmir. You are entering into Kishtwar on one side. You can go anywhere. You can go into the mainland. You can enter Jammu. You can enter the Pir Panjal range. It's very difficult terrain to manage, and therefore, and bomb blast. I remember I was once very lucky. We were traveling through the old bus stand, and there was a blast that it's really a miracle that we were just 3-4 guys and we survived that. We actually walked through the rubble, and there was this huge blast, and there were bodies lying there, and there was these two buses were damaged very badly. Those were the times that it may sound dramatic to others in the heartland, but when we talk of those masjids playing those tapes, I doubt if anybody has heard it as bluntly as we have. There was a mosque that had come right alongside our house, which is just maybe about 100 odd meters away from there. We had a sessions court complex right next to where we were towards that tenure of my dad, and there was a mosque that had come up, and they would blare openly. There was this newspaper. I'm forgetting the name of that newspaper in Urdu.
Ashish, could we go to the younger days of your life in Baramulla
So
and the institutions? Then we come back to this only.
Yeah, Baramulla was absolutely sort of in today's Kashmir context, that kind of a childhood was very different. Because Baramulla had a lot of Sikh influence and Baramulla had a lot of army influence. It was a very different, and the memories of the Kabaili raid were still afresh, and it was very different living as a child in Baramulla and living as a child in Srinagar and living as a child in Anantnag. Was totally, it was a contrast. It was like living in Chennai and in Delhi. That was the contrast. Baramulla was, you were always surrounded by the kids of army officers, and you would be surrounded by the kids who had come from other parts of the country. There's a lot of the school that we went to, St. Joseph's Convent. It had a lot of international feel to it. The kind of teachers that would teach, the kind of Christian influence that also existed. So funny it may sound, but they would distribute those pamphlets in the classes back then, and they'd say, "Acha, theek hai, kya hai?" We always talking about the life of Jesus Christ as if nothing else existed. So that the funny part was that I was exposed as a child to extremities of the communal divide of Kashmir. Even now, when I meet children, when I meet people who are possibly maybe either of my age or younger than me, or maybe seniors to me, I don't come across many people who are exposed to this duality of Kashmir. They largely, and in Kashmir, you would remember, Jugal bhai, that people would not really travel much. It was only a few people who would on a very sort of day-to-day basis, or on a yearly basis. Very few families like us who would travel all through, and most of us had a very stable ecosystem. And even the language, you could identify a Kashmiri from his district. You could, from his leja, you could identify whether he's from Baramulla, whether he's from Srinagar, whether he's from Anantnag area. So, people would not, there was not that one, often I remember, it was very difficult not to get that tinge of accent. And when you would be in Srinagar, you'd say, "Arey, you're talking like a gaon ka gawar," if you're coming from Anantnag. And if you're coming from, Baramulla, and both these places would say, "Acha, Tushuk Shahrukh," so
Shahrgaon.
Tushuk Shahrukh. So that was, but the childhood was, it was had 1990 not happened, it would really not have mattered. Today it matters when you think and you see, then you see how complex it is to be a normal child from the valley, especially if you're pre-90 product. And maybe you've possibly been born, if not in 70s, maybe up to 80s. It was very difficult to be an adult in Srinagar, in the valley. It is, I think hats off to our generation, maybe the generation before us,
Hmm. There are some issues. There are some issues here and there. It's frozen.
can you,
Hello.
are you able to see me?
Yeah, yeah. You're frozen, but you're audible. Yeah, you're frozen. Maybe. Hello. I don't know what happened today. It has never happened in the history of Shidanath conversations. You can just again reconnect or do something like that, some trick, because today it is something very. It's on the both sides. It doesn't connect well. Ashish, you can I mean disconnect and connect again. Maybe it will be possible to join again. Hello. He'll be joining again.
Are you
Welcome
able
again.
to?
आज कुछ
Yes, yes.
आज कुछ अजीब सा है. I don't know. It has happened
99,
for the first
I'm
time.
telling you, this is called the stress of being on 99. So, I think I think hats off to people, the generation before us, your generation, maybe even we have the way we interact today. A common
Yes.
man is not able to see what we have gone through. I
Hmm.
think the beauty of being from the valley, from being Sheetalnath, it tells in your behavior. I
That's
know
true.
people. I'm in touch with, because of my profession, what I do. I'm in touch with hundreds and thousands of people, and it's very difficult to come across. We have something. I think Sheetalnath, that whole air and that sort of to carry that DNA is very unique. That when people meet me, they do not. The first thing that they even there are people who have known me for years and years, and now in the context of Kashmir files, or what is now being publicly seen, that is the power of audiovisual media. Then they say, oh shit, we've been knowing you for such a long time. We never came across anything stressful in your conduct, in your behavior, and you were sort of never never sort of a guy who would claim anything because you were victimized. You've always been there on your own merit. And are you really from the valley? So I think it was very difficult to be our generation. I doubt if today's generation would have been able to. I see, whether it is my own child, I see a lot of children who have a complete breakdown. They're not able to handle the duality because they
Yes.
believe it is pretty straight. And can you imagine? I mean, today you can imagine, you can put that era in perspective and compare that it was such a nightmare. It was a psychological crisis to be a Kashmiri Pandit living in the valley, and to be able to traverse this duality of the political system, the way the system would conspire to keep you down, and you would always be laughing. Show me a Kashmiri family in the valley who would sort of be, exceptions are always there, but sort of none of us would actually be, would wear being sad on, sort of, for the lack of any
That's
other
right.
word.
That's
Would
true.
we
That's
ever
true.
be? We were always full of life. I think we made the best of whatever was thrown at us. The way, the subtlety of celebration. Today I can, being a research scholar today, being somebody who's so heavily invested in culture, in understanding the minorities, understanding human behavior. I think this whole community is the the most unique community in the world that has been able to face this extreme duality, extreme sort of persecution. Other
Hmm.
communities have had a very straightforward persecution. Nahi dena hai, nahi dena hai. We have lived, I think you will
Entire
relate to that. We
civilization,
have
our
lived
root, our esteem was uprooted. Yeah.
we have lived in a society where we have always been respectful, so to say, to everybody, and at least within the 80s people were respectful to us. But today, there was a history behind that. How, what kind of a courage, when people talk of today, in today's context, today when I say something, people take it as an authority, because I am not a passionate, neither am I a passionate, I am a clinical doctor. So when I write something, they know that it follows a certain international norm that is acceptable to anybody worldwide. So today when people talk about Jewish persecution, I say, I mean, are you guys crazy? Do you even know the kind of persecution that has happened? In two generations, Darwin's theory also fails. We have been able to carry forward who we are with dignity, with pride, for 800 years. No community in the world, this is an exception in the world order. And I was recently talking to people from this Vienna Peace Foundation and all those fancy guys who champion peace
Speaks
all over the world. I say,
eloquent
why? What is
peacemakers.
so important about Kashmiri Pandits? So I said, do you know that if today, why is it important for the world community to look at Kashmiri Pandits and take lessons from us? Because if there is a community in the world that symbolizes the importance of peace, that symbolizes the importance of secularism, that symbolizes that what does ambassadoring peace mean, then it is us. No matter
There
where
was
we have gone, no matter what
there
has
was a
happened,
Ashish. There was a difference
we
because
have also, it is a global responsibility that this is the only community in the world that is a true ambassador of peace. So therefore, it is not just my problem, it is not my country's problem, this is a global problem. This is a global challenge that all of you have to preserve this minuscule minority for what we stand
it's a
for the
case
world.
study. It was Kashmiri
Yeah.
Punch is a case study. Certainly, it's a case study about great researchers for evolution of human species and the conflict areas and conflict zones. But Ashish, I would like to say I found a slightly difference in the attitude of the village folks and in the attitude of the Srinagar city folks. In city, we could just see that Kashmiri, our brethren, although we had the best possible friends were there, but Kashmiri Muslim brethren and on the road, sometimes we felt suffocated and certain things happened like that. But in the villages, when because one of my Masi lived in Harman and they had the orchids and all that, so they were the rulers kind in that small village. But I found that maybe it was superficial to me. I found that the animosity level was very low there. Was it
It
just
was No,
a
you're right.
fancy? Yeah.
Absolutely. You made a fantastic observation. I mean, this is a brilliant observation. This is the fact. Now, what was happening was, you see, the voting pattern in the valley or the politics was governed out of, let's say, a Jama Masjid or, the downtown. So
Okay.
it was the hotbed of what would happen everywhere else. And you see, the village areas, especially if you go anywhere 30, 40 kilometers out of
Hmm.
the Srinagar city, people over there still had the Hindu hangover. They still
Yeah.
had the Hindu hangover. So it was sort of, they would understand that where does a Kashmiri Pandit come from, and a Kashmiri Pandit's family would know that your grandfather perhaps was Hindu, and that's how it was. So it was
Yeah.
not hitting you in the face because there were not external factors that were compelling them. As you see today, if you see today in the valley, you will still see the same pattern. While the magnitude has mellowed, but you still see if you talk to a sort of a person in the valley, he would
Hmm.
refer to what is happening as muhim. He would
Oh
refer to terrorists as shaheed. You will
my
see
goodness.
you will
Still.
see a difference. Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm talking about as recently as the previous Diwali. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the valley because I am on so many projects, individual projects all the time. So this pattern has still managed to exist. Magnitude has changed. Magnitude has changed. Especially, you will find a lot of it has changed towards now. Udi has changed, which is an extreme contrast. Earlier, it was not there. Now, the reason is because it still had a very fresh hangover of the Kabaili raid. So the
Hmm.
hatred for Pakistan was not an acceptable word in Baramulla region back then, before 90s.
Really?
Because, the families would talk about what had happened, the atrocities that Pakistan had inflicted in the entire Baramulla region. There was a
Hmm.
very strong Sikh community there, which had gone through that, and Hindus also.
Persecutions.
We of course, the only difference was we would not be vocal about what had happened. The difference between a Kashmiri Pandit and any other community is that our forefathers actually, it's easy to say that उन लोगों को तिलक से ज्यादा त्रिशूल भी चलाना चाहिए, if I were to take that tone. But our forefathers were always that, this is our mitti, हमको कहाँ जाना है. So,
Hmm.
try to, you take a step back. You would remember, I think more than me, you would have, gone through that phase कि शाम को घर नहीं जाना है, किसी से लड़ाई झगड़ा मत करो,
उस तरह का था।
don't argue with them, don't make friends with them. So there was a lot of social pressure, and our families would always try to find that peace. Ki shanti se raho, even if it means that you bearing the brunt, you taking a step forward,
No, there's
keep
no
entire
retaliation, no reaction,
expectation.
no retaliation. Yeah,
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 yeah.
something like that.
So
Yes, that's
you will see the magnitude has changed, but the pattern still remains the same, because it does not still hit you if you go to the villages, deeper villages. It does not still hit you in the face. But the more you
has it
come
has
to our
because
Sierra Leone, still back.
you are a student and a researcher of history, and you have documented some of the best possible subjects on the Kashmir history. Does it have to anything to, if you go holistically and go far, does it have anything to do with the Kashmiri psyche? Because I feel there was a Gurwani. I was that time at Amritsar. There was a Gurwani, and it was spoken. It was placed on that that screen, and it read like that. Some guru, somebody told him that Kashmiris are being converted. Kashmiri Muslims in that time, in that period, Guru's time, one section of Kashmiri Pandits, they were being converted. And then Guru said, I don't know whether it was Tegh Bahadur or who it was. He said that will be a dangerous for the complete India and complete Orient, because once Kashmiris get converted to another religion, they will become the die-hard supporters of another doctrine and other philosophy. Has it something to do with, if we go convergently back to our Kashmiri psyche? I mean, just thought it came to my mind, because now they are not. Punjabis are changing, Gujars are changing, Pahadis are changing, Pahadi Muslims are changing. Everybody is changing their understanding, except
Yeah.
for our brothers.
See, it is very interesting. As a matter of fact, today, Kashmir at one point of time hardly had any mosques. It had very few mosques. And
Yeah,
even the mullahs, the Maulvis had to be imported from Eastern UP. Maulvis
I
had
am
to come from
witnessed.
Eastern.
Ashish. I am witness to one particular incident. You must have been very young that time, when Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah and this Janta Party, they played some. There was some trick there, and there was some procession of Janta Party was sponsored by the government of India, Morarji Desai, and then finally the results broke in, and the results said that NC is winning, NC is winning. And I have personally seen and witnessed. Yes, that was one instance, and another instance one when Bhutto was hanged. Any dadi wala found in the valley was got down from the bus, and he used to be beaten by the NC workers. So what a dichotomy! I do not understand. Could you divulge?
No, it is. You see, what has happened actually is what is Kashmiri culture. If you see today, it's a fabrication. Today, Kashmiri culture, even if you go back to 200 years, in last 200 years, which is the books that you have read, which is the books that perhaps your elders have read, and which are the books that your elders have read, which are the books that people today are reading. So this 200 years in any historical context is very important. This The history of Kashmir in last 200 years, which is being referred to, is the biggest lie on this planet.
Okay.
This whole this it's people are drawing references, let's say, from this Ganga Jamuni
That's a
nonsense
different
and
zone.
this Sufism. This is all a big lie. This is not the truth of the valley, because what has happened is the real culture, the real ecosystem, the real ethos, pathos, lagos of Kashmir died 700 years ago. Ever since, there have been multiple influences, whether it was the Turks, whether it was the Afghans, whether it was the
Afghans,
Mughals,
Dutch.
then whether it was the Sikh. So today, you will also see today there is a lot of Sikhism which is being, not that it is good, not that it is bad, but clinically, if I were to say that, this influence of Sikhism on Hinduism is also a big lie. This sort of fancy that you see, welcoming that, no, that's a lie. Please don't encourage these lies, is what I keep on telling people, that don't go by this कि अरे उन्होंने ऐसा किया, इन्होंने बचाया, इन्होंने वो किया. You have to understand history to be able to sway by these loosely built narratives, which have been, now what is the problem? The problem is these were all government sponsored narratives. The government of Jammu and Kashmir has always lived in denial of Hinduism in the valley. And I have this on authority, because I am a, sort of, in a way, I'm a senior fellow who has been mandated by the government of India. I mean, I know what the facts are.
Yes,
So
you have
government of
you have
government
preservation of minority identity in Kashmir. Yeah.
So government has been very clear that there was no Hinduism in the valley.
Oh my God.
This is the stated position of the previously elected regime. They are willing to agree and accept that there were tribals and there was Buddhism. Nothing before, nothing after. This is
That's
the
a
stated
fallacy.
position of the government. This is the
You know,
this is the stated position of the
Ashish,
government.
how hundreds of travelers have traveled to Kashmir. There are chronicles. Everything is recorded. All the museums around the world has the Kashmir artifacts of the 8th
Yeah.
century, 9th century, 12th century. How can you lie? You're lying to
So
yourself.
yeah, so they specialize in this. Now,
Okay.
how does a lie get legitimacy? The lie got legitimacy because of 370. The lie got legitimacy because lack of intervention, and because Kashmir is a very impervious. See, the biggest challenge with Kashmir is, I always say this. This is what in fact, if I may take a minute or so to familiarize
Yes, yes.
everybody
Please. Then we
in
come to
terms
the
of,
main subject. Yeah. हम
yeah.
slightly
So
चले गए दूर बहुत.
yeah, so what really happens is, this imperviousness of Kashmir is unlike any other society. I always give this example that a Gujarat can be recreated in America, and so can it be in London or
Has been
anywhere else
recreated.
in the world.
Yeah.
Every other ecosystem can be replicated. Kashmir cannot be replicated because of its imperviousness, because the deep rooted connect it has with its soil. Now, when we say soil, it is not emotional. It is availability of ingredients. It is availability of that language. It is available. Language also has two parts. One is the language that today you are a Kashmiri, I am a Kashmiri, but are we speaking in Kashmiri? No. We are speaking in English, but are we talking about European culture, English culture? No. So what are we talking about? We are talking about Kashmir. Even in Kashmir, we are narrowing it down to various things. So this duality, this is not applicable on, this is not a good sign for Kashmir. And therefore, anybody who advocated Kashmir outside was what was, let's say, sponsored views and sponsor. So what the availability, ultimately, you rightly made a point that our history, and Jugal Bhai, the biggest problem with Kashmir is history of Kashmir connected, that proves, that lends credence to the importance and homogeneity of Kashmiri Pandits, does not lie in the valley anymore. It lies overseas. It lies in the
Elsewhere.
library in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. It lies in Europe. It lies in Germany. It does not lie in Kashmir. But the problem is, how do you take that and bridge this gap? that is something that should be a collective responsibility, but there is always a limit to which a minuscule community that is accelerating towards extinction can do. Therefore,
Hmm.
government intervention is extremely important. You see, according to me, and it is not according to an individual, according to the work that I have done, in next 50 years,
Ideology, thought
we will be
process.
extinct. We will be extinct. How will we be extinct? A person or a community dies in two ways. One is when
Hmm.
your language, your culture, your heritage dies. Two is when you physically die. Physical death is the most easiest part to deal with.
Ashish
You
will
die.
we'll come
Yeah,
to that subject further,
sure,
and
sure.
in furtherance, we'll move to that arena. First of all, I would like to ask you very honestly and very candidly, any good memories as a child till the time, I think, how old were you when the migration
I
happened? You
was
must have been
16 or
20,
maybe
19,
17. I was
18,
16 or
18.
17 when we left. And,
You must have been.
I had
Any
beautiful
good
memories.
memories? Any good memories of Kashmiri Muslims with you in Baramulla, in Anantnag, in Srinagar, collective or singular?
Baramulla and Srinagar were always delightful. The problem was with Anantnag. So the problem
Okay.
with Anantnag was, you see, what had happened is, especially this whole area of Anantnag, if you see, it had a history of communal violence. Even in the small villages, Vanpu, Bijbehara, then Kazigund area, Anantnag, Pahalgaon, these were highly volatile because it was at the center, it was a melting bowl of so many anti-India, let's say, or the terrorist movements coming into the valley. It was a hotbed जहाँ पनाह भी मिलती थी और जहाँ लोग भी मिलते थे. So, the first wave of terrorists, most of them happened to be from Anantnag. Many key founders of JKLF had their roots in Anantnag. Uh, the kind of toxic politism that happened, which was championed by the People's Democratic
What
Party.
are your personal
Personal
experiences with the
experiences
Muslims? Yeah.
were good and bad. Good memories were that, when 89, when we just got into 88, 89 in the valley, then it was the Muslims who would come. Are Ashish, Ashu paga trendhon aisi hartal. I meli ne kihin. So how, and they would get the
Samana insan.
vegetables for us. They would come. They would get the vegetables. I still remember, vividly. There was I had just gotten admission into the government degree college Anantnag. There were Mausers being flaunted openly, and there was
Oh,
this guy who was a senior to me. Yeah,
which
and he
year?
was.
Which year? Which year? Which
This
year?
was, I'm talking about 89. 89.
It,
So I'm talking the autumn of 89. I'm talking about October specifically. He had a Mauser and he would say Chamagachi. Sit how. So, it was, on one hand, it was they were taking those steps, but it was not that ki Ashish is the apparent enemy ki usko ठोक दो. वो poison, I think वो 90 वो later
ideological
part of 90s
ingrained
में
किया
आया.
जा रहा था.
हाँ. The bad part was that when India would win a cricket match, our houses would be attacked in Anantnag. I'm
श्रीनगर में भी
sure
होता था.
I'm sure it would be happening. But in Anantnag, it was highly overt. It was highly overt. So there would be these band of people who would move around on the streets and start throwing stones. ये दो जगह पे होता था, जब इंडिया मैच जीतता था या इंडिया मैच हारता था. So either ways, we were the victims. So my worst memory was, my family got summoned to the district court. Because if you remember, there was a newspaper called Samachar Post, Kashmir Post or Samachar Post.
समाचार पोस्ट. समाचार पोस्ट.
It was run by a Pandit family.
Historical,
So
very historical. Bajaz sir.
I don't remember the name of the gentleman, but what had happened. I wrote an article. I was I just moved from +2 into the graduation. I wrote an article, and I wrote this. This is what is happening. What is the administration doing? My Papa was summoned to the district court, and there were so
Oh,
many. It was still a very sort of a congenial. People were very respectful to each other, and they were told, "Hey, Panditji, ichi imkash nahi lukmuti, kitkan haka kiyete ruzit, emis thav khayal." Those were the things that happened. So those were very bad memories. And if you meet people from Anantnag, you meet people from anywhere else, you will see a huge difference. The toxicity level is exceptionally high, and it's very overt.
we'll come to your literary part. Before that, I would like to just make you to stay in Kashmir for some time more. about Sheetalnath, because you must have been regularly visiting Sheetalnath from the place of posting of your father, and then also there are some good things as well, because I think the Kashmiri Pandits, some of the Kashmiri Pandits, most of us are the best possible friends as a Kashmiri Muslims. But when it was a collective thing, then the whole situation changed. Even as a consequence of that, they have also suffered. Yes.
So there is a reason why that would happen. You see, if you look at the Pandit family, because of the four-pronged strategy that the state had implemented, we can go into those if you like. But the four-pronged strategy was simply aimed at removing Kashmiri Pandits from the day-to-day existence where they had a say, whether it is in terms of property, in terms of job, in terms of education. Before 1990 ये तीन चीजें थी. Education में, if I may draw your take your memory to how did they first was the Kashtkar Act, the great, I call it the great land robbery.
Land to the tiller, yeah, land to the tiller.
Yeah. So I was my views were taken by no less than Fortune magazine, which is right next to the Time magazine. So there is one of my editorials. One of my editorials which describes this travesty of justice, and it takes it verbatim. They accepted that it was a travesty of justice. Now that is where, you see, I think Kashmiris also have this. I'm taking a detour. I think we have a dual responsibility. Talking about Kashmir passionately is not going to cut any ice. You have to be, if you want to write a prescription, please become a qualified person to be able to state the facts. This is something that our community will eventually realize. But I just hope and pray because we don't have the luxury of numbers, it is not that, research also indicates that we've reached a tipping point. You see, research also indicates that we've reached a tipping point. Our birth rate has fallen below our death rate. So basically, we are dying faster than we are producing. So it's something for the community to think medically, clinically. We are dying faster than we are producing, and whatever we are producing is not Kashmir.
There's
multiple
one child in a family. One child in a family in this generation.
And that one child is known as a Kashmiri only because of his surname. So which is where the challenge is what we have. So in Kashmir, back to Kashmir, what would happen is कश्मीरी पंडित के ऊपर जिम्मेदारी थी कि भाई तुमको सिर्फ एक काम करना है, पढ़ना है.
Yes.
You just have to study. That was all. Your generation, my generation, we have done nothing but studied, forcibly so. We have done nothing but study. Now, this was not the influence with the Muslim community, because they knew everything is being prepared for them. The land was given to them. So even whether they study or not was of no consequence. Whether they acquire a professional degree or not was of no consequence, because this way or that way, all the jobs were being prepared for them. So education was for them, jobs were for them, real estate was for them. So the stress of education never existed on a Muslim.
Don't you think that in a population, if you go to the proportion of population, we were reduced to a very, very minuscule community? And certainly, if we go by law of democracy, our right, excepting for if we were protected by some law, our right on all the avenues and all the other resources, other than the land was something which was taken by us forcibly, had naturally to diminish, because we didn't have a constituency to bank upon.
So coming back to what I was saying was, for you, for example, जब आपको कहीं खेलना होता, you're not a machine, right? We are not machines. Right. So as a human being, you need that break. In that break, who would be available? I would not be available, because a Hindu, उसके मम्मी पापा तो डंडा लेके बैठे थे कि तू हिलेगा नहीं यहाँ से. But people like us who managed to sort of get out of the homes, who would you find? It's not. You would only find a Muslim guy. So आपका खेलने का साथी, आपके घूमने फिरने का साथी मुसलमान ही हो सकता था, हिंदू नहीं हो सकता था, because that is how the social order was created. And of course, और उसमें fuel ये भी करता था कि हमारे community dwindling numbers थे. We used to live in ghettos. शीतलनाथ में हिंदू थे, पर फिर आगे चले जाओ, हर तरफ चारों तरफ
हम
मुसलमान ही
कदल में
मुसलमान.
थे, बस हम
So, you know,
कदल कने कदल तक या
it was so many factors that contributed to our relationship with the Muslim community, our friendly relationship with Muslim community. There are a lot of external factors that contributed to that. So ऐसा नहीं
you
था
have to live
कि,
with the neighborhood. Yes, that's true.
yeah, yeah.
That's true.
So ऐसा नहीं था कि there was some sort of great camaraderie. It was a matter of they would look at us as people who can impart values to them, who could make them more knowledgeable. So their families, on the contrary, you see, their families had the mandate, your friend should be a Muslim. Your family had a mandate कि भाई मुसलमान से दोस्ती मत करो. So in this, when you are keeping two youngsters together, they are likely to find a common ground. दोनों को एक दूसरे की जरूरत है. सो चाहे वो क्रिकेट खेलते हुए हो, घूमने फिरने के लिए हो, किशोर कुमार के गानों के लिए हो, फिल्मों के लिए हो. So it was still a taboo. I still remember जब हम लोग शीतलनाथ में रहते थे, there was this radio set over there, और वो 8 बजे शायद वो चलता था, एक वो गानों का एक शो चलता था. Back then those were the only forms of entertainment. अच्छा, वो टाइम पे वो क्या होता था कि या जैसे टीवी आया, जब नया नया टीवी आया, सो टीवी चलता ही वो आधे घंटे 1 घंटे के लिए था. उसके बाद पीटीवी चलता था 10 बजे तक. पर जो हमारे एल्डर्स थे वो देखते नहीं थे. अब चैलेंज इज कि कौन बोलेगा आशीष जी को कि यार पिक्चर देखने दो, यार गाना सुनने दो. Those were, so where would you go? You would obviously look out to a Muslim because he did not have those cultural के ऊपर वो नहीं थी.
Hello.
उसके ऊपर वो cultural bindings नहीं थी.
You are again frozen? Yeah. I don't know. You can come out and rejoin again as you had been doing earlier, because there is some chronic dysentery at your end as well. Hello. Yes, I'll remove the earlier one. Hello, Ashish.
Are you able to see me?
Yeah. Can I remove the earlier one? I'll remove that. Keep it up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Please continue. So, I mean, what I really wanted to know, you studied in Baramulla, you studied in Anantnag College. You had the camaraderie, the brothers, the students were all from all communities, and certainly there must have been there were some teachers. Huh? Ji?
Mostly in Baramulla was an exception, but otherwise it has always been the Muslims.
Okay, they were the Muslims. And then again, you were in the Baramulla convent. What is that convent now? Saint Joseph?
Saint Joseph's convent.
Tell us something about Saint Joseph.
Saint Joseph's it is that Holland-based trust that runs Saint Joseph's Hospital and Saint Joseph's School. Up to our time, the principals and all would come from Holland, and the faculty, the alumni. Hamid Karzai was an alumni from our school.
Hamid Karzai.
Preeti Zinta was another alumni from our school. So it was back in 85, 86 when I did my 10th. It was, I think, the 95th year of that school and the hospital. It played a very important. It was a witness to the Kabaili raid. Gang rapes had happened to the nuns, and a lot of massacre. It was witness to a lot of.
Dr. Pandita was on my show. He narrated that entire tyranny and that entire episode.
Absolutely, he is a witness to all of that. In fact, you should ask him about his story of a very prominent guy who is hailed as a martyr. He will tell you that.
Yeah.
The real truth of his martyrdom.
Anyway, I mean, let's move ahead. How was the time in Sheetalnath? You're coming back to the Sheetalnath, some Sattu, Barbarsha.
Was always like, Sheetalnath was like one of those boarding schools ki jahan pe it is the most difficult phase of your life. You are always under the eagle's eye. आप खिड़की से देखो तो ये फलाना एल्डर आ रहे हैं, बाहर निकल के देखो तो इधर से एल्डर्स आ रहे हैं,
It was
घर में
all a
तो
huge family.
मार्शल लॉ, घर में मार्शल लॉ था ही था कि हे गाशा जी आ गए, अब भागो इधर से उधर, जो कुछ कर रहा है everything would come to a standstill. But I think, that is what I'm saying. Those are the things that today's generation, if we broadly say that today's generation is very prone to vices with respect to us, I think those were the real bearings that we attained from our elders, the kind of values that we inherited, because our elders walked the talk. That is something that you don't
Yes,
see today. आज
that's
अगर
true.
आप देखो आज अगर आप देखो, my wife is a teacher. She is under the constant stress कि बच्चे को डांटना नहीं है. Do you relate to that? Do I relate to that? We have very different memories, right? We would be hesitate in saying कि स्कूल में डांट पड़ी, because in all probability our parents would go and कि बोला कि कम मारा, इसको और मारना चाहिए,
Or
ये
Maro.
इसी लायक है. So, but
That is true.
today I see the kind of respect we have for our teachers. It continues. I'm in touch with almost all my teachers who are alive, and the kind of love and respect, they remember us by names. How many today teachers are under a lot of stress because of the students? They don't want anything to do with
And
Behbudi.
also, not only that, our education policy, I mean, the kind of the enormous kind of volumes and volumes of, those books are being thrown into the students. I mean, even teachers, they are not
Yeah,
comfortable with it.
I remember, I'll tell you a very interesting part. Professor Muju, who passed away, he was like an uncle to me. And,
Professor Buju
I was
was my
very,
Mamaji. He's my Mamaji. He
okay,
was my Mamaji.
okay. So, and he was with Burnhall, right? Burnhall or Tyndall Biscoe?
No, no, there are Muju. I don't know which Muju you are talking about. There are Muju
From
family. One, yeah,
He was a
Mujus
professor.
are
Professor.
one.
He
Muju
was
was
also
professor in Lucknow University. He was in Lucknow
no. In
University.
I think he was with Biscoe. I think he was Biscoe or with
Yeah, he
Burnhall.
must be different. Must be a
Huh.
different Muju. Yeah.
So he was a very senior faculty there. I think he retired as the principal, or maybe during 90s he would have been a vice principal. And I would come. I have taken lessons from him in Srinagar, and I was very bad in mathematics. I passed in my 10th only because of those week 10 days that I studied with him, and I was able to pass my 10th mathematics because of him. And then again it kept on repeating. I mean, 11th I took lessons from him, 12th I took lessons from him. So Sheetal Nath is everything that I stand for today, good or bad, is all because of Sheetal Nath. So
And Shitala itself is a very historic place, where all the great people have come, all the great congregations of modern Kashmiris have happened there. All the
yes,
great, all
and
the Martin
you
paper was published from there.
yes,
It has a great ambience. Yeah.
and Jugal bhai, somewhere I meet so many Kashmiris also otherwise, but there's a difference. Ki aap, it's like there are people from the valley, there are our elders and community members from the valley, and then there
Yeah.
is this somebody from Sheetal Nath who stands tall like an Amitabh Bachchan among everybody else. So people from Sheetal Nath have a very
Shit.
unusual aura, a sense of authority, and it's very stated. एक तो
Sheetal Barrow.
अथॉरिटी होती है कि भाई मुझे कुछ मानो. I remember the funny part, if I may tell you, how he would want to bring you to the ground, and you would be talking about so many things, and he would suddenly say, अच्छा Wednesday की spelling क्या है? And you would say, oh shit. So they had this stated, this subtle authority that they would wield, and you would know that they know. And a person who knows, he knows. It's not like others who try and say that हाँ मुझे ये सब पता है. People from Sheetal Nath always had that aura around it.
It had some,
And
but there was some
Parmeshwari
difference.
then,
Some different. Sheetal Nath had a very different resonance, a very different eloquence, a very different from rest of the valley, rest of
yes.
like Habagadal and other places. Sheetal Nath was something different. It was
Yeah,
open. It
they'd
was
say कि
something different.
ये श्रीनगर के गुंडे हैं.
Anyway, I mean, I would like to move ahead because our subject is slightly got diverted. So we went on to the common things and all. There's a whole story everybody knows about the '89 Holocaust, or whatever you may call it, a refugee. You came with a book in refugee camp. I think that was your first and earliest book, probably
First,
you wrote.
first,
Yeah,
first.
and that was a very honest, that must have been very honest, anecdotal version of what you faced in your life, your version, your perspective, your vision, and what you encountered. And let's begin with your literature now. First of all, let's come to the refugee camp. And before refugee camp, when you moved out of Valley, how was? Do you have some reminiscence and memoirs? I mean, just a brief account. We all have the same stories. Just a brief account
Of the valley.
of the valley, coming out of the valley, the last days in the valley, and coming out of
Valley
the valley.
was
And
coming out of the valley was very traumatic. I didn't know what to do. The first year I lost a complete year of my education because it was like कि अगले हफ्ते वापस जाएंगे, 10 दिन के बाद वापस जाएंगे, 1 महीने के बाद वापस जाएंगे, and suddenly I realized that I had lost one complete academic year with nowhere to go. And it was very traumatic. And family wise, all of us have gone through the same shit. And it was, for me, it was, you see, it was a year of transformation for me, 1990, because till 1990 the only ambition I ever had was to play cricket for my country. Cricket was unique to all of us. All of us knew about cricket, but for me, my vision about my life was, everything else is there. Why do you need anything else? Well provided for, सब कुछ है, ठीक है, जो भी जरूरतें हैं वो, क्योंकि उस समय कंपटीशन नहीं था. उस समय ये नहीं था कि आपको बाइक होना जरूरी है, कार होना जरूरी है, टीवी होना जरूरी है. There's nothing. All of this did not matter.
all the luxuries.
It did not matter at all. So for me, I was very sorted. I was very clear. It was the October of 1989. I was selected for Ranchi. My life was set.
Ranchi,
That was that. Yeah, that was all. I played from Baramulla. I played from Anantnag, and I was. I'm telling you this, even if you laugh at me. अगर मैं तेंदुलकर से अच्छा नहीं था, तो मैं उससे खराब भी नहीं था. I was the only batsman in that Ranchi squad who was the opening batsman. I was a bowler, I was a wicket keeper, and I was a fielder par excellence. I was sorted. And
Kapil Dev.
No, better. You could add maybe a dash of Gavaskar and a Tendulkar also into it.
I really admire your confidence.
I was very good. And my father
That's a
trained me.
confession.
The only coach I had was my father. So he saw his dream through me in a way. I could guess that, because he would take, usually हमारे parents नहीं लेते थे ना interest. So he took interest in my cricket. Though subtly, as our elders have always been, subtly, but he did. I know he made a huge difference to my
exception.
cricket.
That was an exception.
Yeah. So, I didn't know what to do because, you see, I was a guy जिसने एग्जाम का हाफ टाइम कभी नहीं देखा. क्यों? क्योंकि मेरे दिमाग में हमेशा ये होता था कि मुझे मैच खेलने जाना है. मुझे अगर 5 सवाल आते भी थे, जुगल भाई, अगर आप मेरे वो आंसर शीट्स निकालोगे ना, उसमें 3 ही सवाल आंसर होंगे, क्योंकि आई यूज्ड टू बी सो कॉन्फिडेंट ये 3 से मैं पास हो
नंबर आ जाएंगे, 50% आ जाए.
ओ 50 भी नहीं, मैं 40 में खुश था. 33% कश्मीर में वाज लाइक, ठीक है, पास हो गया. तो मेरा वही रहता था कि यार 3 सवाल करने पास हो, बाकी क्यों टाइम वेस्ट करना है, मुझे तो पढ़ना तो है नहीं. So it was complete transformation for me because I didn't know what to do. I was absolutely lost, and suddenly I found myself in a world where marks mattered. From a position where I never had any education did not matter to me, and then I saw myself in a state in an era where, if at all anything mattered, it was the marks. It was your qualification. It was your certificates. I had none. And that whole, going to Jammu as a tourist, the roles were reversed. You're not meant for Jammu. You're not meant for Delhi. You're meant for Kashmir. Today you know the difference between living in where we lived and which is this question was asked to me by my daughter who has never been to Valley. She went to the Valley for the first time now this Diwali. I took her to Kheer Bhavani, which is where we
many congratulations to you. Your daughter got a medical seat,
No, she's now on the verge. She's become a doctor now. I mean, she's doing her
I saw a photograph. Before we move ahead, we'll take a photo tour. We'll take a photo tour first, and then we move ahead. Just let's use this invert endo principle. it will just break. There is no monotony. I mean, everybody's liking. I can find there are very few people who join because of this disarrayed connection. But then again, people will be watching this program because this program is loud all over.
Sure.
And I would like to just have a photo tour, small photo tour, if possible. Uh, yes, this is Ashish, and this is which school?
This is Hanfia. No, this is St.
Okay,
Joseph's.
St. Joseph, and there's a principal sitting in the center. Yeah.
No, he was. I think he was. If I remember correctly, I don't remember who that gentleman is. Perhaps he was some visiting guy or somebody.
Okay. Some visiting dignitary and visiting
Hmm.
person. And this is you with your daughter?
Yeah, that's my daughter. Yes,
You married in which year? After the
I
migration?
married
Which
in
year?
99. 99.
99. Oh,
That is Pahalgaon 88.
88. Oh,
Yeah, that is that Pahalgaon club जहाँ पे उसकी कर्मा की shooting हुई थी. On the
Karma. Yes.
on the you'll see my sister who is now in Dubai, my dad, mom, and me.
Oh, I see. Dad looks quite younger here.
Yeah. This is the launch of STREE Desh, which was done by the Ministry for Meenakshi Lekhi, who is the External Affairs Minister, the Minister for State for External Affairs. That is Dr. Sonal Mansingh, who has
Sonal
performed
Mansingh,
on
yes.
my play. On my play, she has performed on my play, STREE Desh.
Are
At this
really?
particular, this is a very important thing. There were ambassadors from 13 countries that time. There were
Okay.
ambassadors of 13 countries, which is where this photograph was taken, and they all gave a standing ovation. They said, it is beyond our comprehension that Indian women, and then to think of Kashmiri women specifically, having contributed to creating the fundamentals on which the modern world works. They gave a 15-minute standing ovation. And then you have Dr. Sajdanand Joshi, who is the member
Yeah.
secretary of, he's an accomplished academician. He was the vice chancellor of
Admission.
many universities, and now he's the member secretary. He's the head of Indira Gandhi Center for the Arts. That backed my research work. I mean, it would not have happened if he was not there.
Sonal Mansingh is a genius. Of course, you have written it very wonderfully. I've read the reviews, although I've not read the book. But certainly, this might have been. Certainly, this should have been. This is about the DIDDA. This is
This
about
is
the
the
video.
Hindi version of DIDDA. This is the Hindi version of DIDDA, and that painting was specially made by a very renowned, internationally known painter, Narendra Pal Singh, who
Narendra
conceived
Pansing.
DIDDA as an Ashtadurga. So you see that she had so many.
He has created this whole.
Yeah. So it was his version of DIDDA. So this is one of the social events that happened in Chandigarh. This is the entire Northern India Journalists Guild
Oh,
under the aegis of Indian Institute of Mass Communications. So they had gathered and they had invited me over to discuss about STREE Desh, the legendary women of Kashmir. So this was taken there. So you see one of the bureau chiefs of Jagran right next to me there.
yeah, I've seen that. I could just find it out that he's from the Jagran. Yeah, here you are with Kavinder
This
ji.
is Kavinder ji, who has been a great supporter. He was the
Really?
deputy CM that time. I've known him from a long time. I mean, right from the time that he was the mayor of Jammu. So
Oh, I see.
he's been a very humble guy, very supportive. Even now, if my father goes to him for something, कि ये सड़क ठीक नहीं है, though even he has very little role to play, but he goes out of
He
the
is
way to.
he is a pure Dogra, pure Jammu Dogra, pure
Yes,
old
yes,
Dogra, and
yeah,
very gentle. And he was not
very
ambitious
gentle.
earlier. I remember
Yeah,
from school times, but
yeah.
his younger brother was ABVP president, and another was Yogesh. Yogesh was with us, and he was into this, what do you call it? He was part of some gang, and ultimately he fell to that. But he had a they were all, I have seen them together with playing kabaddi during our RSS shakhas and all those,
Mm.
playing kabaddi together. Yeah. Yes.
So this is one of the director generals of Doordarshan and All India Radio, Dr. Rajshekhar. I mean, this guy is a legend. You know, this guy's father was Professor Surya Narayan Vyas from
Surya
Ujjain,
Narayan, yeah.
the iconic Vyas family of जिनकी शादी में राजेंद्र प्रसाद खुद आए थे. This is the gentleman. He comes from. इनका लिखा हुआ एस्ट्रोलॉजी का पर्चा was like, you know, you could hold it against a watch. Whatever he would say would happen. That was his father, and he himself is a very accomplished academician, and he retired recently as a director general for Doordarshan. These are, you know, the lovely couple, Dr. Joshi and Dr. Malvika Joshi. Dr. Joshi's mother is a Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. She's an accomplished Marathi literary person, and in her late 90s now. But I think she just 2 years back she got a Padma Bhushan.
So wonderful.
This is refugee camp was released at the hands of the then I&B minister. Colonel Rathore was the I&B minister at that time. Yeah, and I still remember him. He was very cautious and he was very edgy. He was, of course, you know, being an army man and being into the position. He said, "Yaar, Ashish, मतलब ये कश्मीर है, क्या करना चाहिए?" So I said, "आप बैठो," and I took him through the entire thing. And he just got up. He shook my hand so firmly. He said, "Ashish, we are doing this." That is the moment.
That's so. No, he is one of the wonderful personality from the cabinet of Modi ji.
And you know, Refugee Camp, incidentally, is the first book which
तो
was
local politician आ गए.
जी जी ये आपके बीजेपी
कौल साहब है.
जी 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 जी
वो मेरे ख्याल खड़ा साहब है.
नहीं नहीं, that is Sapru, that is Mr. Sapru. He works with the education wing of RSS, the Bal Bharti schools, or you know those.
Bal Bharti, okay.
So he is the custodian of that. Refugee camp, incidentally, had two important aspects to it. One, it was forwarded by the chief of the army staff. Why it was important was, you see, we all know now army, and we know even कि आज की तारीख में छोटा सा एक छोटा नहीं होता, पर एक कैप्टन मेजर की भी कितनी सिक्योरिटी होती है. General J.J. Singh, he was a commander that time, and he was ambushed, and he is very lucky to have survived the ambush in the valley. So he said, Ashish, जो मैंने पढ़ा है, you know, of course there was part that I know, but even as the chief of army staff, I have no hesitation in saying what you have written, refugee camp, is something that even I did not know, and he has written that in the foreword. And the other extreme was, this is the first book on Kashmir where Pakistan is a direct, constituent to terrorism. It was supported by one of the most iconic celebrities of Pakistan, Hassan Jahangir, जिसका गाना कश्मीर में किशोर से ज़्यादा पॉपुलर हुआ, हवा हवा है हवा खुशबू लुटा दे. उसकी बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी हुई कि when I approached him, I felt that, you know, how do you cut across these lines? How do you get your, you know, आपकी मेरिट तब होती है जब आपके खतरनाक ओपोनेंट आपकी बात को सुने. मुझे वो करना था. And when I approached him, he heard me, and you know, he's a gentle giant, and he tells me, आशीष भाई, मैंने आपके साथ कभी कुछ बुरा किया है? मैंने कहा नहीं. आपको मुझसे कोई दुश्मनी है? मैंने कहा नहीं. तो आप क्यों चाहते हो कि मुझे कोई घर में गोली मार दे? मैंने कहा नहीं, आप पढ़ो. And I sent him an English version of this thing, and I left it because I understand the sensitivity of being a Pakistani in Pakistan and supporting India. So I left it at that. India there. And then he called me. He said, "No, Ashish."
Now hordes and hordes are coming now, supporting on the roads to India. Abhi change ho raha hai. The situations are changing because of this.
You know, when I was the group president of Z, I used to have a lot of Pakistanis who would come. I would invite a lot of Pakistanis. All of them would have one thing to say. कि यार एक बात बताओ, हम यहाँ जहाँ भी जाते हैं सब लोग हमें प्यार देते हैं, इज्जत देते हैं, मान देते हैं. They are so respectful to us, but nobody talks about Pakistan. It's a complete mirror in Pakistan. हम सुबह से लेके शाम तक सिर्फ एक ही बात सुनते हैं, इंडिया हाय है, इंडिया हाय है, इंडिया बुरा है. यहाँ पे कोई
that is the narrative. That is the narrative.
आप लोगों की इतनी, you know, आप लोग प्राइम मिनिस्टर की बुराई कर देते हो, आप इसकी बुराई कर देते हो, यू डोंट केयर, इन द सेम फैमिली यू विल हैव डिफरेंट व्यूज. आई सेड या अभी तुमने कश्मीरी फैमिली देखी नहीं है, बाप बेटे की नहीं सुनता, बेटा माँ की नहीं सुनता, माँ किसी की नहीं सुनती. बट दैट इज द
और
ब्यूटी ऑफ बीइंग एन एजुकेटेड कम्युनिटी.
और हमारा सेंचुरी से कोई सिंगल लीडर नहीं आया, ना हमने किसी को माना है.
आएगा भी नहीं. एंड देयर वाज ये दो पिक्चर में एक कहानी और है. तब मेरा वजन
अच्छा.
118 किलो था, ये 78 किलो का है.
This is 78.
या
You were very young those days.
नहीं, वो ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है. दिस इज व्हेन परमेश्वरी वाज रिलीज्ड एंड वी हैड विवेक अग्निहोत्री एंड पल्लवी.
अच्छा, how many pages are the Parmeshwari Andolan? It is
Parmeshwari
written
is
in
about
Hindi?
100. Yeah, it is in Hindi. I try, and though funny, and it is quite excruciating for me because Kashmir में हिंदी पे उतना ज़्यादा focus होता नहीं था, and we lost touch. और हिंदुस्तान में तो there is very little encouragement that is there for your native languages. So it takes me a lot of effort. If whatever I can do in a year, possibly in English, I could do it in 15 days. But I still make the effort of doing it in Hindi is because, you see, I have a purpose behind doing that. My biggest purpose is the heartland is still Hindi dominated. और heartland में कश्मीर की reality वो अंग्रेजी में नहीं समझते. और मैं इंटेलिजेंसिया को केटर नहीं करता. I'm not interested in people who shout and scream over these TV debates and the high profile sort of people. I'm not interested in them. My
Self-amusing.
work is that a common man, एक हिंदुस्तान में जो एक कॉमन आदमी है, उसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग कश्मीर के बारे में क्या होनी चाहिए, which is where Hindi helps me in doing that.
Yeah, Hindi is a great language. Hindi is a great language. Actually, purpose of keeping Shitala's conversation in English was entirely different. It was a narrative to be taken to the world because
नहीं
we
नहीं,
were
of
just
course it is
it was
important.
because all the languages and all the people across the
देखिए,
world.
फैक्ट तो ये है कि कश्मीरी आप कश्मीरी भी नहीं समझते हैं. सो दोज आर पेनफुल दो, बट दैट्स द फैक्ट.
Now there are some people who are working. Yeah,
दिस
this is
इज द चीफ ऑफ BBC मीडिया एक्शन इन इंडिया,
oh,
राधा
I
रानी.
see. So she's with the book DIDDA. Yeah.
या शी इज विद.
Did
See, I've
BBC
taken it to cases who have been absolutely anti us.
that is the trick of the management you learn into corporate world probably.
Not only that, you see, that can only give you an entry, but that respect will come from the content, from the authenticity and the way, which is
That's true.
where it's very important to present your stuff in a certain way which is acceptable. Now, Didda, you see, you also know what was the narrative that exists in the valley about Didda. कि वो चरित्रहीन
Yeah,
औरत थी. Period.
I remember in 1986, 1986, I was, because I was I was founder member of Natrang, we were regular theatrists in those days, and I used to do English theatre as well. In those times, there was a first national festival, was zonal festival of Sangeet Natak Academy, was organized in Jammu, and I was doing covering because I was a theatre critic. I used to write regularly for theatre, art, literature. And I covered the entire festival. In that festival, we had the entries from all over India, very great people. बट कश्मीर में थोड़ा मिलता है ना, वहाँ पे थोड़ा सिफारिश करते हैं. तो वो निसार नसीम जो वहाँ का स्टेशन डायरेक्टर मेरा यार ही है, उसने उसके किसी कश्मीरी भाई शांति कौल ने शायद उसका स्क्रिप्ट लिखा था, रानी दिद्दा. मेरा रिव्यू अभी भी लिखा है उसमें. तो बट वो दिद्दा जो है वो बड़ा कन्फाइंड है, और जो आपके दिद्दा का मैंने रिव्यू सुना है, दैट्स वेरी एक्सटेंसिव, एंड आई हर्ड दैट यू हैव गॉन इनटू आप ईरान एंड अदर लाइब्रेरीज, और आप एक कोलैबोरेटिव एविडेंस को लेके भी, विल टॉक अबाउट दैट. Although हम लोग का बहुत समय चला गया, but still we'll talk about that because that is the main subject today. This is your brother and sister?
Yeah, this is Prerna, my sister and me. And I think ये शायद तब की है जब I think she was about 2 or 3 years old, and I think I was 5.5, 6. ये तब
Okay.
की है.
Lovely. That's so great. So wonderful.
This is Aman Arora on the right in the green. He's the cabinet minister from Aam Aadmi Party from
Oh,
Punjab. And the gentleman, Mr. Singh, he is the Minister for Agriculture for Punjab. So Sri Desh was with them. So they unveiled that in Punjab.
oh, I see.
He is the Urban Development Minister and the Minister for Agriculture. This was when the film Sri Desh was released post COVID.
Ashish, who directed this?
I directed.
You directed it? Okay.
Yes.
So it was a series kind, a documentary
No,
series?
it is a research monograph which was converted into a documentary format.
Oh, I see.
So I had to visit Kashmir all over again. I mean, I have shot extensively in Kashmir, identifying the areas and all of that and corroborating. You see, research is all about corroborating. You take them to the
Collaborative
places.
evidences.
So this is again Sudhanshu ji. When refugee camp was converted into a play, this was the first play that happened in Delhi after COVID. So,
Oh,
he himself was there.
so Ashish की एक distinctive personality है, अलग से
And
दिखता
he
है सब.
himself had, वो 2 दिन पहले हॉस्पिटल से निकल के आए थे. He was very
अच्छा?
kind. Yeah.
And this is Vice
This
Chancellor
is
साहब हमारे,
ये अपने हमारे
एमा
अश्विनी
साहब
जी
और
हैं.
अश्विनी जी.
हाँ, अश्विनी एंड एमा साहब.
अश्विनी जी और एमा साहब.
So this is Sunita Aaron. Sunita Aaron is the resident editor of Hindustan Times from Lucknow. One of the, she is an iconic journalist whose word is worth its value in gold. I mean, she's been around for about 40 years, seen the transition in the politics of UP, one of the most respected people. She herself, when I discussed about refugee camp with her, and sort of Hindustan Times, in the media also, there is a very clear divide कि आप रोने धोने वाले लोग हो, आपको तो आदत है अपीजमेंट की, ठीक है, और कांग्रेस अच्छी है. So, there has been that with the majority of the journalists, that has been the narrative that has been painted. She was no exception. She was the woman who has supported Kashmiri Pandits tremendously through an iconic institution called Hindustan Times.
Really? That's great news.
See, again, I come back to the same thing. हमारे में हम 36 चीजें बात करते हैं, पैशनेटली बात करते हैं, उसको कोई कदर नहीं करता. आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि जब आप कहीं जा रहे हो, आपकी बात कैसे रखी जाएगी. इट इज लाइक व्हेन यू गो टू अ मेडिकल शॉप, क्या वो आपको ये ऐसे दवाई दे देगा जी, आप उसको बोलो जी मेरे को तो पूरी दवाइयों की नॉलेज, अब तो मुझे ये दवाई दे दो, वो बोलेगा भैया मेडिकल
प्रिस्क्रिप्शन लाओ.
So, I was very clear in my mind that I don't want to be like others. While that work is incredible, invaluable, much needed, but जो काम डॉक्टर की प्रिस्क्रिप्शन करती है वो ऐसे लिखा हुआ पर्चा काम नहीं करता. I've been conscious of that. There are various routes that to be taken. It takes a toll on me, but I believe when I'm dead and gone, maybe मेरे lifetime में अगर हो गया बहुत अच्छी बात है, maybe शायद मेरे lifetime के बाद होगा. But then the point is, in the literary world, in the world of facts and figures, you need to leave a footprint in time that somebody can refer at some point of time, and then he will be able to do better work. So
And
today my whole focus is कि भाई
it should be
ऐसा
fired
कुछ
in the authenticity.
पकड़ के कोई आगे चल पाए.
It cannot be a filmy fantasy. It has to be based, fired into very authentic research based, and all the things which you have done, which you have employed. Because lot many people, why our narrative gets weak, it is just because of the fictionalized, dwindling of thought, and the imagination of the person who writes down that particular narrative. And that too is a very parochial and a very it is not very much it has not much exposure, not only literary exposure, not only research exposure, but exposure of understanding the human psyche. So all these things need to be done smartly, then only you can But narrative has to be honest. It has to be honest first of all. It has to be, the core essence has to be honest. That is how it is. ये फिर
That
वही
is
है.
again when the Hindi version of Stree Desh was launched. So again, Meenakshi Lekhi, she was there.
Meenakshi ji was helpful, kind of a.
Yeah, of
वो एक
course.
फिगर, पॉलिटिकल फिगर है तो.
She was there. You see, Stree Desh, आपको मैं बताऊं, मैंने 13 देशों के एम्बेसडर से को एड्रेस किया उस दिन. You know, everybody had just one line to say. They said, you know, it is beyond our comprehension कि कश्मीर का दुनिया को बनाने में इतना contribution रहा.
अरे wonderful.
That is the single line that I have strived for, and that is what I have objected कि मेरा ये objective मेरा ये है बस. And this is again one of the very celebrated faces of Indian television, Richa
वो
Anirudh.
तो famous है, बहुत famous personality, very familiar personality, familiar face.
Now she runs one of the most popular podcasts in the world, which is Zindagi Live. And this is again, he is the Director General of Indian Institute of Mass Communications. He is also the Registrar of Makhanlal Chaturvedi University now. Very renowned media influencer.
Wonderful.
Sanjay Dwivedi.
अच्छा, this is about ये मेरे ख्याल उनकी शायद मोटू साहब की किताब आ गई.
This is when I was 2.
You look very cute. 2 is a very, I mean, you just arrive from that rejuvenated furnace known as eternity. Again,
This
Meenakshi
is
ji
the
is
English version of Stree Desh. This had happened at that. This is my daughter when she completed her medical, and now she is interning.
Chalo, God bless her. She is very cute. God bless her.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And here you are talking something, you know.
This is the recent. Just I think about 4 or 5 days back, there was an exclusive screening that was held for Stree Desh. This was for the students of media and entertainment, the government colleges and Delhi University and various institutions, Indian Institute of Mass Communications. So there were nearly about 150 students who had to learn the importance of documentation, fact collection, and how facts can be presented, how they should be. So it was sort of a masterclass for the students. And Kashmir is the most complex subject where, you know, if you're good, then nothing can put you to test more than Kashmir. That is Anurag Punetha. He's the head of media wing and one of the very important journalists. This is what Hindustan Times had said about DIDDA.
Saga of India's greatest hero.
Now, interestingly, you see what happens is, this is the change that I want. हम लोग क्या कहते हैं? Heroine बोलेंगे, important. Hindustan Times said that no, Ashish, hero. DIDDA is the greatest Indian hero. वो लड़की लड़का नहीं है. She is the greatest Indian hero. This is not me who is saying it. This is one of the largest publications in the world who said that. That is the importance of being Kashmiri. Now, this is what Kashmir is. This is our history. This is our heritage. This is our lesson to the world.
That's true. We'll talk. I think.
It's Aman Arora, the urban development minister earlier. Now, this is again, ये आप अगर आप पीछे जाए, इससे पहले वाला ये. Now see, you know, the interesting part about this is a newspaper called Indian Express. We all know the legacy of Indian Express. This is the first time that Indian Express reviewed a book, an English paper reviewed a book that was written in Hindi.
It was which edition? Delhi, Bombay.
Delhi, yeah. Not edition, yes. And this is almost, you know, a full quarter of a page that was directed.
Who wrote the review?
This
अच्छा,
was done by, I'm forgetting the name of one of the editors who was there. Uh,
here you are again with the Sri Desh.
yeah,
Sri
this was
Desh is
an
a very,
exhibition. This was an exhibition about women of the world, and which is where Sri Desh, there's a special corner dedicated to Sri Desh.
this
This
is
is
again very,
during the play of refugee camp. Utpalji presented. This is Nilvat Puran being presented to Sudhanshu.
okay. The guy, I mean, the Nilmat Puran of Fula guy.
Sorry.
I mean, Nilmat Puran, whose version? It is the version written by the guy, Madam Ma'am Guy.
No, I'm sorry. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
Now this is again. I mean, she passed away in during Corona. She's she's one of the most. She's like she is one of the most authoritative art curators, historians, and a celebrated person. Um, Alka Raghuvanshi, and she happened to be the wife of Manoj Raghuvanshi, the guy who
अरे,
did जिसकी रिपोर्टिंग हम हमेशा रेफर करते हैं ना ये
हाँ,
उनकी
मनोज रघुवंशी इज अ लेजेंड
yeah.
ऑफ दिस।
So she
उस
is
जमाने में करते थे जिस जमाने में तो रिपोर्टिंग का पता नहीं था, कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था।
so she is the
दिस इज
woman who
अगेन
made
विद
Manoj Raghuvanshi. Let me put it this way.
यू आर विद द बिग मैन।
इनके बारे में तो क्या ही कहना। इनके बारे में तो बस मैं इतना ही कह सकता हूँ कि when I approached him for DIDDA, you see it's very important कि आप जैसे मैंने मुझसे कई लोग पूछते हैं कि यार तुम कश्मीरी समितिज को इन्वॉल्व क्यों नहीं करते, यू शुड कम, why don't you go to Jammu and talk about it, and why don't you go to
इससे क्या
Kashmir, you
होगा?
talk about it. I have deliberately kept myself away from those platforms. Not that I am them and they are me, so I look at it that way. But you see, what is the
You have to move
purpose?
to the world.
Purpose
Yeah,
is
you have
not
to move to the
mutual
world.
bonhomie. Purpose is that you need at this stage of the Kashmiri Pandit renaissance, if one were to use that word, you have very little time available. You
Yes.
need as much support as you can get. So when you talk of support, who will be that person? एक तो हम किसी को respect में बोलते हैं. मेरा पर्पस है यार जो कौन दुनिया में सबसे बड़ा आदमी है, इनसे बड़ा कोई नहीं है. Now the challenge is, while he has been so very kind to me always, but I know he has so many challenges. Time is the biggest challenge that this man has. And when I approached him, I knew for next 2 years, this man does not have a day to spare. For 2 years, because I had done that work. And I was very clear he does not have to. I still said कि यार चलो क्या होगा, ना बोल देगा ना, मैं try तो करूंगा. I don't want to be dissatisfied that I did not try. So I tried. And the second day I got a call from Rosie. Rosie is the guy, is the person, is the lady who has been handling his affairs for last 30, 40 years now. Brilliant lady. And she said that, is this day? I said, yes, of course, this day is. Within 2 days, she gave me a time. And just before I was leaving from home to meet him, and she called again. She said, Ashish, there is a delay. Oh, and my heart actually missed a beat. I said, oh shit. Now, does it mean 2 saal ho gaya? She said, there will be a delay of 15 minutes. Is that okay? I said, please, yeah, don't do that. I almost got a heart attack. 15 minutes, I can wait for him for 15 hours. She said, then no, you please come. There will be a delay of 15 minutes because he's recording for his father. He's converting all the work of his father into audiobooks. So he was
अरे
occupied with something in between that
हरिवंश
happened. And let me tell you, when I went, there was no official acceptance that he will release it. There was no official acceptance. It just had to be a meeting. And when I talked to him, he and there was that one. He talks very little, so he said, "Ashish, अब ये बताओ करना क्या है?" So it really took me those 30 seconds to gather कि अब मैं क्या बोलूं, because I was not prepared for it. And
वो
if he were to
मेथोडिकल है, बहुत मेथोडिकल है।
it would take
He's a
me
methodical
many
person.
lifetimes to pay him for what he normally charges. So I said, sir, this is what I would want. He said, okay, कब करना है? मैंने कहा अब no, what do you say? कब करना है? So he said, अरे छोड़ो, अभी करते हैं. He said,
Okay.
अभी करते हैं. And that is how this happened. And
Certainly.
it was his word. You know what he said? He said, Ashish, if I don't do this, I do not know what else to be done.
Oh, that's so wonderful. No, he's a role model for many, especially his father. Especially, I'm in love with his father and his that Madhushala. My goodness, that is so wonderful collection of poetry.
This
Back in
was this
1956.
was
Here, you
the
seem to be like a community leader. You seem to be like a community leader, giving a very, I mean, some thought-provoking. You
this
have put
was
the baseline in 1956. Let's know
yeah.
something about this 1956. Your perception. How did it start in
So
1956?
it was basically the first time when you see to give you a parallel of why 1956 is important, as important as 26/11. When 26/11 happened, what did America do? America said this is war against terror. Did they go out killing every terrorist? Did they go out against all the Muslim community? No. They gave it a face. Face was Osama bin Laden. They said Osama bin Laden ko maar diya, the war against terror is over.
अभी
Likewise,
तो
56, same
हम
thing
लोग तो
happened in
innocent हो
50.
गए.
जी. So 56 से institutionalization of Kashmiri Pandit persecution began. Formally, state sponsored. ये दुनिया में कहीं ऐसा नहीं हुआ. State sponsored democracy में terrorism against a minuscule minority has never ever happened anywhere in the world. 56 was that landmark year. Sheikh was in the jail for almost a decade and so were his people. And to cut the long story short, Sheikh Abdullah was very clear after his jail term कि मैं हिंदुस्तान से पंगा नहीं ले सकता, प्राइम मिनिस्टर नहीं बन सकता, नेहरू गांधी से पंगा नहीं ले सकता, लेकिन मुझे बदला लेना है, मैं कैसे लूं? He gave it a face. The face was Kashmiri Pandits.
Was it
And
so?
yeah, so then how it is simplistic to say that he thought कि कश्मीरी पंडित से बदला लेना है, but कैसे? कश्मीरी पंडितों का दबदबा दिल्ली में था ना, तो कैसे बदला ले सकते थे आप नहीं ले सकते थे. प्लस आपको तो ठिकाने लगा दिया, आपको जेल भेज दिया, आपके सारे अरमान खत्म हो गए, आप सऊदी अरब कंस्पायर करने गए, आपने सारी दुनिया में मुस्लिम वर्ल्ड में
उसमें
कंस्पिरेशन.
कश्मीरी पंडितों का रोल नहीं था, उसमें नेहरू का अपना कैबिनेट का रोल बहुत बड़ा था.
मैं वही कह रहा हूँ, उसका किसी का रोल नहीं था. लेकिन अब प्रॉब्लम ये है कि अब कैसे पंगा ले सकता था. तो what he said was, along with Mir Qasims of the world and all of that, they said कि भाई let us make good use of Article 370. So उन्होंने क्या किया? So the first time when the land reform policy was made, Jugal bhai, this is the first example in the world where a socialist tool was misused in a democracy against a certain religion. Yeah. Now, the funny part is, why did Fortune, the problem is, why did Fortune magazine accept to take my article? Because I demonstrated factually कि क्या क्या हुआ था, और उसमें क्या problem था कि कई सारी चीजें थी, how we were reduced to paupers overnight. But do you know, land is of three types, broadly classified into three parts: horticulture, floriculture, sericulture, and agriculture. Kashmiri Pandits only had dominance over agriculture. This law was not applicable to the rich and mighty owners. Horticulture, floriculture, sericulture pe it was not applicable. So the whole idea was use Article 370 to interpret the law in a way कि कश्मीरी पंडितों की जमीन लेनी है. And it is a travesty of justice. Do you know, nowhere in the world somebody's hard-earned money has been nationalized. It was not Air India, where government is supporting you and therefore they are entitled to nationalization. Majority of the land of Kashmiri Pandits was the land that they had owned by their own money. It was not Jagirdar. It was a wrong information. It was a wrong narrative to be peddling that Kashmiri Pandits were Jagirdars. 90% of Kashmiri Pandits were not Jagirdars. They themselves were so poor that most of the Kashmiri Pandits would till the land themselves. And that is where
they had a small, even if there was someone, they had a small land holding of half acre, maximum half acre or 1 acre.
And the bigger travesty was most of the land that was acquired, a majority of the land was acquired from Maharaja. सो बेसिकली योर लैंड वाज एक्वायर्ड, ये ऐसा हो गया कि आपकी बाइक चोरी हो गई, आप लेकिन उसकी ईएमआई भी भर रहे हो, बाइक लेकिन आपके पास है नहीं. सो वी वर पेइंग टैक्स टू द महाराजा एंड आवर लैंड वाज आल्सो टेकन अवे. देन ये 56 का पहला था कि यार मुझे कश्मीरी पंडितों को बर्बाद करना है. कैसे बर्बाद करना है? इनकी जमीनें छीन लो ताकि ये कश्मीर छोड़ के चले जाए. हम लोग तब भी नहीं गए. इसी लोग कहते हैं ना, हम लोगों ने वो भी
मुझे
झेला.
लगता है इस प्लान में ज्यादा बेग साहब का बहुत बड़ा रोल था, शेख का उतना नहीं था, बेग का बहुत बड़ा रोल था। और जो थे ना
मीर
जिन्होंने ये
कासिम.
प्लान बनाया, लैंड टू द टेलर, इट वाज बेसिकली अडॉप्टेड फ्रॉम रशिया। इट वाज अडॉप्टेड फ्रॉम रशिया इन टोटो। आई मीन
Yeah,
इट डिडंट
it had
अप्लाई टू
happened at many places in the world. ऐसा नहीं है, जागीरदार
इट।
एक्ट तो हिंदुस्तान में भी ऑलमोस्ट सभी जगह
नहीं,
है.
मतलब उन्होंने क्या करा, उन्होंने उसको लगा दिया। एशिया में लैंडलॉर्ड्स थे, बड़े बड़े बैरन्स, बड़े बड़े
हाँ.
बिग लैंडलॉर्ड्स थे। कश्मीर में कश्मीरी पंडित कितने बड़े लैंडलॉर्ड थे, वो बेचारे हाफ
नहीं, वो बेचारे वो
हाफ होल्डिंग
लैंडलॉर्ड
वाले
नहीं थे. वो
लैंडलॉर्ड थे
एक्चुअली
ही।
द वेरी डेफिनेशन, यू सी, जागीरदार किसको कहते हैं कि भाई
लॉर्ड, LORD,
जुगल,
लॉर्ड।
जुगल जुगल
लॉर्ड
भाई
मीन्स
साहब
द
राजा
ह्यूज।
है, वो आशीष से खुश हो गए, उन्होंने कहा ले तू मेरा छोटा भाई है, आज से ये जमीन तेरी. तो आशीष भी जागीरदार बन गया. बट कश्मीर में ऐसा नहीं था. मेजॉरिटी जो लैंड था, लोगों ने अपनी मेहनत के पैसे से जमीन खरीदी थी. वी वर दैट पार्ट ऑफ आवर कम्युनिटी हैज बीन लॉस्ट. इट वाज अ वेरी इंडस्ट्रियस प्रॉस्परस बिजनेस कम्युनिटी
इंडस्ट्रियस,
that
लेस
knew
डेमोन्स्ट्रेटिव,
that
लेस
that
बोस्टली।
knew. Yeah. So एक तो वहां से शुरू हुआ. फिर उसके बाद में 1956 के बाद में, आई थिंक टुवर्ड्स द एंड ऑफ 60s, दे दे फेल्ट कि भाई ये तो जा ही नहीं रहे, अब क्या करें. सो व्हाट दे डिड वाज दे सेड कि दूसरी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज क्या है कश्मीरी पंडितों के पास, वो है एजुकेशन. कि ये तो एजुकेशन को छोड़ते नहीं है. जब 10वीं की लिस्ट लगती थी, 12वीं की ग्रेजुएशन की लिस्ट लगती थी, 1 से लेके 90 तक कश्मीरी पंडित होते थे. फिर कुछ छोटे मोटे कुछ मुस्लिम होते थे, सरदार होते थे. लेकिन उसको जब हम उल्टा करते थे तो एडमिशन नहीं मिलता था. वो क्यों नहीं मिलता था? दे स्टार्टेड द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ J&K स्टेट कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी. ये दुनिया की पहली ऐसी कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी बनी जो मेरिट को डिसरिगार्ड करती थी. इनका काम था, जैसे आज का नीट है, सिविल सर्विस, यूपीएससी है, दिस वाज इन प्लेस ऑफ दैट. देयर रोल वाज टू एडमिनिस्टर एडमिशन. अब एडमिशन कैसे होते थे? कश्मीर में पासिंग परसेंटेज वाज 33%.
Ashish ji, it will be a long story. I mean, we will go
जी.
on and on. Let us
Yeah.
move slightly ahead because बहुत सारी चीजें रह जाएंगी, टाइम काफी हो गया है।
So what had happened? 56 was a landmark year when
Okay.
state adopted 3 elements as state-sponsored terror agents against a community to take them away. Eventually, 1990 happened. 1990 was the last leg. तब तक 370 जो करना था वो कर चुका था, which is why 56 was important.
Okay. So this is again the same story, and this is Amitabh ji again on a different occasion, perhaps. Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah. This, he had unveiled one of my ventures earlier, the Star Blockbuster. It was the largest trade magazine that time. Again, he did not take even a single penny. He walked for 2 minutes just to come onto my venue on time.
Okay, that's so wonderful. So that was all we had. I mean, there are many more photographs, but because of paucity of time. So let's go quickly to your literary side. First of all, Ashish ji, because I personally believe that Kashmir, a lot many stories have been written, whether fiction, non-fiction, especially when they write about Kashmir, either they pick up something from which has been established by during the Dogra rule by the Western philosophers and Western authors who came down and who were assisted by Kashmiri Pandits, and lot many things were revealed in that particular time. And I had a program on that scholarly talk with Mr. I forgotten his name. He had come and he had 2 talks, and he brought the entire, the whole battery of the people who visited and reinvented the entire thing, and the role of Pratap Singh and Gora rulers in recreating this Renaissance had started then. But apart from that, what do you think is this from this the whole concept of writing for Kashmir, who is being written by many others also, other people as well? What was really compelling force? What was a magnet within you which really created this thought that you will be writing? One, another thing, your methodology is very neat. It is pure. It's clean because it is based on a paradigm. It's based on a modern research methodology, And then there is certain things which has been contributed by your own vision, your own perception, your own endeavor. Let us know the formation of a writer and of author, Ashish Kaul, especially vis-a-vis the history of Kashmir.
See, it all began with my daughter played a very important part. When my elder uncle from the Kellam family, when he passed away, to cut the long story short, over the aircraft used to from Jammu to Bombay, the aircraft would go. It had a halt in Srinagar, so from
Okay.
Jammu, Srinagar, and Srinagar, Bombay. So when my reaction obviously to Kashmir is very different and hers is entirely different. And she had seen Kashmir from above. And वो time पे वो जहाज would go over ऐसा लंबा detour लेके जाता था. You would see those fancy red rooftop जो अब हो गया है.
Rooftops,
So
yeah,
my
yeah.
daughter asked me, Papa, we are from Kashmir. I said yes. Kashmir is so beautiful. I said yeah. Why don't we live here? So instinctively, I wanted to tell her that we were brutally killed, we were terrorized, and therefore we left. But then that time my daughter was hardly 12. I thought that was not the right narrative for me to be telling a daughter to a child. She has a mind of her own. And then I realized that there are millions of others who do not know what really Kashmir stands for. And therefore began the journey, of course, to put it in the perspective, which is unbiased. I underwent a lot of personal hell that time because I was threatened so many times and so much. My family, I'd kept it away from them because they would get panicky. Cybercrime refused to cooperate. So much happened during the first effort. Then while I was doing refugee camp, I realized that there was so much to Kashmir then 1990. Unfortunately, what has happened is looking at a broader context, not just what happened with us, the broader context of Kashmir, that Kashmir is that Felix that had once lit the entire world. Kashmir was the center of trade, it was the center of commerce, it was the
Art,
center of
literature,
astrology.
excellence,
It was something.
aesthetics.
It was not a tourist place. लोग यहाँ घूमने फिरने नहीं आते थे. लोग
It was
यहाँ
like a Silicon.
educated होने. लोग यहाँ wisdom के लिए आते थे, which is where
Hmm.
Sharda Vidyapeeth. Now the problem is the entire narrative has got so fixated upon 1990, and the tragedy of 1990 has dominated everything else. Now I believe, while there is nothing that can be done about 1990, tragic as it may be, but the solution lies in the history of Kashmir that has been eradicated. 200 साल पहले, 300 साल पहले तक की हिस्ट्री में मेरे से बहुत काबिल लोग, बहुत लोगों ने काम किया है. उनका काम सर आंखों पे, उन्होंने बहुत बड़े बड़े भारतीय लोग हैं. But that is something that everybody knows. There is no solution there. Now, why did I focus on Project STREE DESH? Very briefly, I'll tell you. What is world run on today? Banking system,
Bank.
important constituent. Where does the banking system come from? Everybody, you also read the same thing. I also read. I was the business head for Hinduja Group. People largely within the community, they know me because of my literary work. But I've been the youngest business head of one of the largest
I know.
organizations in the world.
I said it in my introduction. Yeah.
So, आपको पता है दुनिया का पहला कोऑपरेटिव बैंक एक कश्मीरी औरत की देन थी दुनिया को. वेयर इज दैट हिस्ट्री? दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम हम ब्रिटिश आर्मी को क्रेडिट देते हैं, यूरोपियंस को क्रेडिट देते हैं. दुनिया का पहला सबसे बड़ा पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम वेयर public facilities have to reach the last mile was creation of a Kashmiri woman. दुनिया का पहला experiment with democracy, we both were told from the Greeks, no. World's first democratic system governance was led by a Kashmiri Pandit woman from Kashmir 3,000 years ago. दुनिया का आज दुनिया is run on counter intelligence, combat, army. इसमें दुनिया में महिलाओं का कोई रोल नहीं है. लेकिन दुनिया की सबसे खतरनाक war strategy, guerrilla warfare, had nothing to do with men. It was creation of a Kashmiri woman. Do you know that? दुनिया की पहली paid army, one to recognize the importance of the loyalty of army, was a Kashmiri woman. It happened in Kashmir. दुनिया का पहला commando dasta. We live in the world of Uri, surgical strikes and all. Can you imagine?
Yes.
World's first commando force was creation of a Kashmiri woman. Men had no role to play. दुनिया का पहला counter intelligence mechanism that ran missions across Central Asia was way back 1200 years ago, जब लोगों को कपड़े पहनना भी नहीं आता था. This is the role of Kashmiri women. And I believe for India to be the Vishwa Guru, That chabi, that
women.
tala can only be opened by Kashmir, and more specifically by the women of Kashmir. But where कश्मीर तो छोड़ दीजिए आप, औरतों की दुनिया में क्या हालत है, हिंदुस्तान में औरतों की क्या हालत है,
You know,
वो चाबी कश्मीर से
that
जाती
that
है,
is
which is where
that
I'm
is the
focusing
motive.
on.
That is the motivation. I mean, you, of course, your horizon is slightly broadened and widened, but yes, that in smaller or the bigger way, that is the great motivation we all authors who write for Kashmir have. But I am just more interested into your skills of methodologies of discovering these truths with the corroborative evidences. Yeah.
Two important things is, you see, as a student of history, or as a now as a doctorate in history, there are two things that are very important. One is, how do you present your facts. फैक्ट होता है, 2+2 4 ही हो सकता है, आप उसको कैसे प्रेजेंट करें. अब फर्क ये है कि जिस तरीके में आपने 2 और 2 4 पढ़ा, मैंने 2 और 2 4 पढ़ा, इट इज वेरी बोरिंग. My audience is the young India. India is today the youngest nation in the world. 70% of our population is below the age group of 32. It is the youngest nation in the world.
It is the
So
young
therefore,
country. Understood.
and therefore they have no interest in reading something which is boring. आप उनको बोलो कि फलाना ईयर में ऐसा हुआ था. So what I did was I introduced two versions of my book. One is the research monograph version that works, that is clinical, that is as per a prescription. And I create a second version which is for the people. So मेरा ऑब्जेक्टिव ये रहता है कि अगर मेरे वर्क में 200 पेज है, सो दी जब कोई आदमी पहला पन्ना पढ़े तो वो 100-200 पेज से पहले उसको ये याद नहीं रहे कि उसको मुझे बताना है कि मैंने किताब तेरी पढ़ना शुरू किया. सबसे आज तक एक ही आदमी ने फोन किया, उसने 188 पेज पढ़ के मुझे फोन किया, सॉरी आशीष, आई फॉरगॉट दैट आई हैड टू कॉल यू. I read 188 पेज because I
So
always tell
engrossing.
it was Ketan Mehta, the iconic illustrious director.
My
Ketan Mehta.
goodness.
I told him, Ketan bhai, पढ़ना नहीं है, सिर्फ 2 पन्ने पढ़ने हैं. 2 पन्ने पढ़ने के बाद मुझे फोन करना. And he called me. He said, "यार sorry, मैं 188 पेज पे पहुंच गया." It was so engrossing. So I recognize ही खाली
You're
history.
talking about DIDDA?
DIDDA and STREE both. DIDDA and even refugee camp. He read all of them. So the whole purpose is, देखिए, आप लिखने में कुछ भी लिखो, कितना अच्छा लिखो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, जब तक उसको पढ़ने वाला उस चीज को अप्रिशिएट ना करे, जब तक उसका एक कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग रिजल्ट ना आए. लिखने में तो देखिए जुगल भाई, Amazon पे 12 करोड़ किताबें हैं, उसमें से 8 करोड़ किताबें
यहाँ रोज 100, 200, 400 किताबों का होता है. वो तो
फायदा क्या है?
वहीं रह जाती है, चेयर पे रह जाती है. यस,
कोई फायदा नहीं. So the whole purpose is people should read it
Read it.
and they should remember it and it should cause action. ये मेरे 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव है. उसके बाद में what I do is, how do I go about doing this? Because I know
corroborative evidence and research.
मेरे लिए सबसे पहली ऑडियंस policy makers hai. What is my objective in my personal life is that I should be able to influence a policy in a way that it becomes conducive for our community, our culture to thrive in an ecosystem, and government should do that. हम लोग कब तक करते रहेंगे और हम लोगों के पास कितना वेयरविदल है. So what I do is, अब ये historical facts कैसे कोलेट करने, कि जैसे सपोज शीतलनाथ है, सपोज आज शीतलनाथ में तो हिंदू नहीं है, तो क्या इसका मतलब हिस्टोरिकली कोई ये लिख सकता है कि यहाँ हिंदू नहीं रहते? ठीक है, ये वो गलत तो नहीं होगा. अगर कोई बाहर का मार्क्सिस्ट आए, वो ये बोले यहाँ हिंदू नहीं रहते, हिंदुओं की क्या जरूरत है, यहाँ पे शीतलनाथ मंदिर की क्या जरूरत है, हिंदू तो रहते नहीं है, ही इज ऑल्सो राइट. सो अब हिंदुओं का है, हिंदू यहाँ रहते थे, वो यहाँ से भगाए गए, ये उनकी धरोहर है, उनकी फ्यूचर जनरेशन की धरोहर है, ये कैसे प्रूव करेंगे? सो यू हैव टू चेंज योर स्पेक्ट्रम. अब शीतलनाथ की स्टोरी कैसे कोलैबोरेट करेंगे? हम शीतलनाथ के एडजेसेंट एरिया में जाके कोलैबोरेट करेंगे. क्या वहां के हिस्ट्री में शीतलनाथ और वहां के वैल्यू सिस्टम के बारे में है?
That's very important. That's very important. Because I always told them, whenever you talk about ललिता आदित्य, please, मैं सारे रिसर्चरों को ये कहता हूँ, मैं खुद तो नहीं कर पाता, इतना आप एनर्जी नहीं है, मतलब, लेकिन मेरे को बहुत शौक था ललिता आदित्य पे. मैं क्या, एटलीस्ट यू शुड गो टू द एनल्स ऑफ द चाइनीज हिस्ट्री, यू शुड गो टू द उज्जैन हिस्ट्री and search and swim and come with the truth and authentication. Wherever you feel there's a falsify, delete it from the history. Right? Which is authentic.
सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम ही हमारे यहाँ ये होगी ना कि हमारा रिसर्च का, what is the window? Google.com. भाई हमने तो गूगल पे पढ़ा. अरे गूगल पे
What's everything?
जिसने झूठ लिखा तो वो थोड़ी हिस्ट्री होगी, वो रिसर्च थोड़ी है. सो यू नो द फनी पार्ट जुगल भाई, जो आपने मुझे बोला ना, आई वाज टॉकिंग टू अ हिस्टोरियन इन ईरान, आई थिंक ईरान इराक में. एंड यू नो आई व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग अबाउट a few things and Didda's name, he said, Queen Didda, talking about from
Really?
that Lord, and I said yes, she was one of the legends of the Middle Eastern world. I said, excuse me.
Huh.
She said, yes, I know. She was a legendary, she was a legend in the Middle East. Now you see, then I realized, important thing, people who came and destroyed our culture, our history, our heritage, it got destroyed in our side, but it remained in their history books.
Like it's like Baristani Shahi.
It
It's
remained
like
in their history.
Tawfatul Abab, Baristani Shahi.
Yeah,
It is written there. Persecution, everything is explained by them only. It's not our narrative. Yeah.
yeah. पाकिस्तान में आप जाएं, दिद्दा का नैरेटिव टोटली डिफरेंट मिलेगा आपको. पाकिस्तान में
वहाँ
जाएंगे
क्या
तो
है?
दिद्दा का नैरेटिव आपको, ये अच्छा, ये हमारी कम्युनिटी में, मैं शर्म में कभी कभी चुप रह जाता हूँ. आई सी अ लॉट ऑफ एल्डर्स, वो छूटते ही बोलते हैं, बट वो तो कैरेक्टरलेस औरत थी. ऐसे छूटते बोले, वो तो कैरेक्टरलेस औरत थी, वो तो कैरेक्टरलेस. मैं पूछता हूँ, कहाँ से,
वो तो
किसने आपको बताया? अरे वो
कलहन
हमने
राज
पढ़ा
तरंगिणी.
कहीं, किसी ने बोला कहीं पढ़ा, कहाँ पढ़ा? राज
मैं
तरंगी
तो
पढ़ा.
क्या कहूँ.
अरे राज तरंगी जब लिखी गई थी, उसको तब दिद्दा को मरे हुए 300-400 साल हो गए थे.
उसके
तो देयर
बाद
इज नो वे, कलहन को भी किसी ने बताया ना. अब प्रॉब्लम ये है कि यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द एंटायर इकोसिस्टम. फिर उस इकोसिस्टम की ऑथेंटिसिटी आपको प्रूव करनी पड़ती है. अब जैसे स्त्री देश, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, स्त्री देश, इट टुक मी 6 लॉन्ग इयर्स इन रिसर्च. ये जो आज आप 150 पन्ने की किताब देखते हैं ना, उसके पीछे 6 साल का, आई टुक अ ब्रेक एट द पिनिकल ऑफ माय करियर. जुगल भाई, यू नो, मम्मी पापा मेरे को रोज गालियां देते थे कि दर बदर चुप घूम. It took me, I'd taken a break 6 years at the pinnacle of my career to research that. वो एक 150 पन्ने के पीछे 7 साल का रिसर्च खाक छानी है मैंने, जो आज लोग 60 मिनट की फिल्म में देख सकते हैं. बट टुडे
it's very
गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया took 2 years to agree to those deliberations, sir, took 2 years. But today, what is my biggest thrill? Today, any boy can go to a government library, वो मिनिस्ट्री में जा सकता है, वहां ऑथेंटिक उसको रिसर्च मिलेगी, वो उसके ऊपर बिल्ड कर सकता है. और वो रिसर्च जो है, वो पैशन नहीं है, वो हियर से नहीं है, वो कोई किस्से कहानी नहीं है. इट इज अ रिसर्च मोनोग्राफ.
I really want to, I mean, there's a child within everybody, and there's a child within me also. Certainly, I would like to just have this corroborative evidence of Didda in Iran or Iraq. Tell us something more about it. I mean, how it was collinear with the Didda by Kalhana, and what more sources were there to corroborate the existence of Didda
देयर
and
वाज
her armory?
द बिगेस्ट एडवांटेज इसकी, एक मेरी ग्रैंडमदर कहती थी हमेशा, वो कहती थी, बिना मरे स्वर्ग नहीं मिलता. सो अगर आपको
सुनना
शौक है,
पड़ता है.
अगर आपको शौक है कि आप दवाई लिख के दो किसी को, उसकी जान को खतरा ना हो, और डॉक्टर, वो मेडिकल वाला उसको दवाई दे दे और वो खाए और वो ठीक हो जाए, उसके लिए बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, एग्जाम देना
डॉक्टरी
पड़ता है
पढ़नी
6-7
पड़ती है.
साल का, तब आप डॉक्टर बनते हो. So fortunately for me, as I said, I took a break at the pinnacle of my career. I'm perhaps one of the oldest guys who achieved a PhD, oldest guys who got a senior fellowship. So I've gone back as a student. And Jugal bhai, I worked very hard for my career because I had nothing. I did not have a godfather. I was not a product of an Ivy League. मैं काम करता गया, उसके साथ पढ़ता भी गया. ना मेरे ऊपर किसी का हाथ था, ना मेरे को किसी ने सिखाया, वो मेरी अपनी मेहनत थी. बट द
Self
व्यू वाज वेरी क्लियर दैट चाहे दुनिया में कोई चीज हो या नहीं हो, आई कैन नॉट बी ए हॉस्टेज कि ये बताओ, आप इतने बड़े बनो कि आपसे कोई ये सवाल ही ना कर पाए. जो आपने कहा वही फैक्ट होना चाहिए, क्योंकि लोगों को ये पता होना चाहिए कि आप जो कह रहे हो ना, जैसे जब हम डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं तो क्या हम आप उसको पूछते कि नहीं तूने सैरिडॉन क्यों दी, इसके पीछे की कहानी बताओ, ये कहाँ से आया, यू, बिकॉज ही हैज डन एमबीबीएस. सो फॉर मी टू टेक दोज ब्रेक्स वाज रियली इंपॉर्टेंट. नहीं तो सरकार मेरी बात नहीं सुनती, मेरे से काबिल लोग वहां हैं. सो इस केस में क्या हुआ कि व्हेन आई वाज डूइंग दिदा, दिदा इज अ पार्ट ऑफ श्री देश. सो
Yeah, yeah.
तो उसमें क्या हुआ कि व्हेन आई
You
वाज
can just continue in English for our English audience. For our English audience, you can continue in English as well.
okay, so you know,
Simultaneously.
specifically with Didda, what happened was Didda covers 3 important geographical locations.
Yes.
Kashmir is a very small part, but हमारा Kashmiri Pandits का perspective about Didda is only from Kashmir. That is, I did not
One
get
part.
into that at all. Because
Okay.
by the time Didda was in Kashmir, Didda, who Didda was, had already become. She was born where? She was not born in Kashmir. Didda was not a
Afghanistan.
Kashmiri. Didda was born in Lohar. So today's Lohar dynasty is who? The entire western part of Pakistan, India's Poonch, Rajouri, Punjab, and Haryana. So
Hmm.
she was the daughter of the Jat community.
Jat.
Jat community. Yeah, she was the. जैसे लाली हरियाणा में लाली बड़ा पॉपुलर नाम क्यों है?
Lali.
Because Lali was a very prosperous Jat king. His name was Lali Jat. इसके लिए हरियाणा में लाली बड़ा पॉपुलर नाम है. हर एक को लाली लाली घर में बोलते हैं. So she was a princess of the Jat family. जिसका दबदबा इतना था. अब आप सोचो, पंजाब, हरियाणा, पुंछ, रजौरी, वेस्ट पाकिस्तान, दिस इज द फूड एंड द फ्रूट बोल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. कितना प्रॉस्परस किंगडम रहा होगा. ठीक है. उसकी बेटी. अच्छा, वहां का राजा कौन? राजा सिंहराज, वन ऑफ द लेजेंडरी रूलर्स ऑफ हिज टाइम. Who was King Simraj? King Simraj was the son-in-law of Raja Bhimsha. Who was Raja Bhimsha? Raja Bhimsha was the iconic ruling dynasty of Central Asia. The last
Okay.
Hindu Shahi family that ruled Central Asia.
Shahi
Raja,
dynasty. अरे यार, Shahi dynasty was the Afghanistan and
आज के जो 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 ये अगर आपने आर्गो वगैरह, if you've seen that film Argo and all, so you know the when Ayatollahs of the world, when they rebelled, and when
Ayatollahs.
till then it was the Shahi family.
Shah
They had
Iran. Shah of Iran. Yeah.
like Indonesia, they had retained their Hindu culture, symbolism. They had converted their religion, but not their heritage, like the Indonesians. So King Bhimsha was, so this is the ecosystem. Didda, granddaughter of one of the greatest kings who ruled Central Asia, whose kingdom started from the boundaries of Hindu Kush to Iran. On the right hand side,
Caspian Sea.
of his right hand side is another flourishing, prosperous, mighty kingdom of Lohar dynasty, which
Lohar.
goes right up to the other part of the world. And in this ecosystem, there is this daughter, this girl, who was born abandoned by her own family because she was born disabled. That is why Didda became. I mean, Didda was raised by a maid. She was abandoned by the king, by the family,
Okay.
because she was born disabled. She was raised by a
Yes,
maid
yes.
servant till she was
That's funny.
25. And then she happened to meet the king of Kashmir, who had ventured into the Lohar dynasty on a hunting spree, and he was so mesmerized by the eloquence and the knowledge, the wisdom of Didda, that he decided to marry her. At that point of time, interestingly, he did not know that she was disabled. He happened to know much later. And then that was a $1 million question for the king of Kashmir, who was incidentally, the king of Kashmir was the most devout king ever.
Yeah.
Kashmir, post this Afghan era, and just before that, Kashmir had a very turbulent history that continued.
Yes.
History of Kashmir has been peaceful only for 52 years. And do you know when? Only when Didda was ruling. No, only when Didda was ruling. Everybody else had a very difficult time in Kashmir, as always. So we have given hell to everybody. So Didda was the only exception who ruled for 52 years, and during her time, Kashmir remained in the peaceful possession. And she ruled 3 different geographical areas. And therefore, when this part was completely eradicated, this part of history was eradicated, and Kalhan's history became the modern point of reference, you have to go elsewhere to find out their antecedents, which is where most of the history lies, and where she is revered as a legendary woman who created the army. Now, incidentally, there is a narrative in my book which is about the training of Didda, how Didda acquired her training, who was her trainer, the kind of military practice that she had,
War skills.
how she created guerrilla warfare. And there is a battle of Kabul, which is nowhere in the history today. There is a battle of Kabul with the uncle of Mahmud Ghazni. There is a battle which was with almost 38,000 mercenaries that had attacked India. to be met with just one woman, Dida, with her handful of people, and he lost that battle. And he ran away from the battlefield. He was caught. He said, please, I'm seeking forgiveness. I will never come to see India again. The battle commanders, Narvahan, who was the prime minister come commander in chief,
Narwa.
he said, Dida, he is asking for forgiveness. Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. She said, shut up. It is history. She said, shut up. Don't talk nonsense. Don't say anything which is incomplete. No ahimsa parmo dharma. Ahimsa, wo ahimsa, the violence that is necessary to keep peace is more important. And she had him crushed under the feet of her elephant. That
War for
sent
peace.
that sent shock waves across Central Asia, which is why for 52 years they would say कि Hindustan की तरफ देखना मत. There is a mad woman who is ruling India.
She
So
was
don't
dreaded.
even think. So that was her foresight. That was her valor.
Uh,
Never lost a
we are
battle.
we are almost 2.5 hour, nearing 2.5 hour, 2 hour 20 minutes have already eloped. I would have loved to have a discussion on Didda only for a long time, because I'm more interested in the history, the construct of your literature, especially Didda and the Sutri Desh. It is different from others. People have a very limited, view of this, and it needs a very, it certainly needs first of all a vision, a consistency, and capability, and after all sacrifice. Without sacrifice you cannot have your aims done. So let's come down to another book of yours, Refugee Camp. I know it will be about it, a brief about refugee camp.
Refugee camp is the political history of Kashmir, seen through a 16-year-old boy, his family. The only thing that I've changed in refugee camp is the name and the occupation of my father and my name, because my father was still
Okay.
working that time, so I had to
I
change
need
that
not to
name.
mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I changed that. So it is a narrative of the socio cultural ecosystem of Kashmir as seen through a family. It is your family, it is my family, it is everybody's family. The facts don't change. It is the
It is
narrative of.
similar to the other narratives.
No. It is very different. In a way, if you see refugee camp, if you read refugee camp, you will see Kashmir. You will not read Kashmir.
You will not
It
read.
was actually this part of refugee camp that is available in the
That's
public
so.
domain. It is written as a film screenplay. So you will be watching a film. You will see yourself. Jugal bhai, you will identify with the character there. You will see your friends there. You will see your relatives there. And I come from like most of us who have seen how our relationships changed. You see, there was a set of relationships in Kashmir. The same set of relationships dramatically changed outside of the Jawahar Tunnel. Same
True.
relationships. Okay, same relationships. I have seen that. I've seen, I've seen, faces change. I have seen those eyebrows frown. I have seen that, that question in their eyes कि अब कुछ कोई मांग तो नहीं लेगा. So,
Human fallacy.
yeah, so it is refugee camp. Why is refugee camp appreciated? Because it's a deep down into human mindset. It is how you behave when things are not right, and Kashmir is no exception. The biggest sales of my work has happened, from where, Jugal bhai? From Chennai. 17%. People who have no idea of Kashmir, they don't understand Hindi. There was a woman who wrote a 4-page review from a hospital bed from Apollo from Chennai. And she said that, Ashish, I cannot even begin to imagine the pain that your community must have gone through, and how the same set of relationships would have changed, and how it would have shattered people like you. We cannot even imagine. I think for me that was the objective, that people should
That
know.
was a
It
kind
is
of
it,
a.
it is it is not just about losing a house. It is for Kashmiri Pandits, it's not about just losing a house. It's not about that brick and mortar structure. It's not about that bank balance. No. What we have lost is far beyond the comprehension of people.
We have lost. It is just like a root is cut, and we have the entire civilization has been dried out. It is that, in a particular, reservoir, where all the fishes and all the species and all the crocodiles and everybody is driven out, and suddenly there is a basin which is without water, and it is something like that. It is the
You know, I can
complete.
I can give you a very small example, and very quickly, that there were, among various other research parameters, there were two research parameters for my fellowship, which I did. which was one was based on food habits, one was based on socioculture. Food habits may there were various parameters on which the food habits were judged to simplify it for everybody. I had said in a very simplistically, I'm putting this कि आप 10 खाने कश्मीर के बताओ. So they named 8, 7, 5. Then I said, how many do you actually consume today? So, interesting thing is, among the 10 Kashmiri foods, 8 have been replaced from wherever we are today. So, if you are in Gujarat, 8 dishes have been, our 8 Kashmiri dishes have been replaced by 8 regional dishes. Likewise in Maharashtra, likewise in Karnataka, likewise wherever we are. Do you understand the implication of that? Do you understand the genetic implications of that? And now, how do you research? How do you see? Now you see a reflection. When I say it is bad, where do I say bad? Then you same set of people, if you evaluate them on the set of diseases, had, not had, acquired, then you draw a relationship and you arrive at a point that when you deviate from the food of your forefathers, your climate, the ingredients, you are prone to diseases that we all are, whether it is blood-related diseases, diabetes, heart, etc. So many things, cancer. You see cancer today, the way it is. Why? Because suddenly, all of a sudden, it is not progressive. वो कहते हैं ना कि if you get somebody used to poison a dose a day, he becomes impervious to poison. For us, that was not the case. From non-poison directly to we are moving into poison. Likewise, to simplify the research about the festivals. So 10 festivals, people may note today about 7, 8. Shivratri, everybody knows. How do you celebrate? Out of 10 festivals, 8 have been replaced by the local festivals today. Yes. Shivratri, which is the emblem of Kashmiri Pandits, which earlier in our times we have seen 14 days ka cycle. There was a 14-day ka Borat hota tha, wahan se start hota tha. Today it was largely shrunk into 2, and today it is people symbolically do whatever they do and they go to a temple. Kudos to them, they're still doing it. But the problem is, so today out of 10 you have reduced to 1. And you have incorporated everything else. So आज आप नवरात्रि मनाते हो, डांडिया करते हो, गणेश उत्सव करते हो. There's nothing wrong in that. I mean, that is, we are part of the larger Sanatan family. We are Sanatan, and Sanatan has gone to the world from us. So, that is all right. But we are Kashmiri Pandits first. Our ecosystem cannot be replicated anywhere. Our language cannot be replicated anywhere. Plus, the other part of my work is, you see, we don't have role models. हमारे role models हमारे elders के साथ में खत्म होते जा रहे हैं. और कश्मीर में सबसे बड़ा problem आज जो है ना, जो people who are going out of the community. If you draw a relationship between who are the most traversed communities, Sindhis, Jews, southern part of the country, and some other minuscule Parsis are example. Why is it that they have never let go of their culture, their value system? Because they were able to survive on their role models. Role models are the living emblems that, yes, you see that man, Ratan Tata, Jamshedji Tata, you know what he did for India, so therefore I'm a Parsi, I'm proud of my legacy. Everybody has a role model. Kashmiri Pandits are devoid of role models. We don't have role. And now what has happened is, because you don't have a DIDDA in the narrative, you don't have Kalhanika, you don't have Yashomati, you don't have 13 other extraordinary people who otherwise would have served as sentinels to the whole world community. Hamare paas hai nahi. So what has happened is, we have become inferior in our relationship with the world. So today, a Kashmiri boy does not want to marry a Kashmiri girl and vice versa, because both remind themselves of what happened in 1990. It is not like a Bangla or a Malayali who, wherever he goes, he says, I am a Malayali first, I am a Bangla first, and maybe an Indian later. We are racing on the path of extinction and moving away from being a Kashmiri Pandit. It is, in my research, I was able to capture that people are feeling very inferior. They take pride in speaking in Dogri. they take great pride. आप जम्मू में देखो, my own, the younger generation, they speak Dogri like this, but you tell them something in Kashmiri, they feel they're hesitant. Why does that happen?
Well,
It is because of fear
there
of
are other reasons as well. There are other
many, many
reasons.
reasons, many reasons, but this was the single largest reason.
Geographical shift has a
No,
is the
what I'm
greatest.
saying is that same parameter, if you take a Bangla and measure him in London, he will still, his pride will be many-fold higher, even in London. He will be a proud Bangla in London. A Kashmiri will try to be a London wala more than a Kashmiri Pandit, because
Yes,
he
yes,
does not
yes.
know, because he does not have
He
role
will,
models to
he
tell
will
the world, oh, I am
even
from this community.
even I think that is ingrained into their psyche, that probably even if in London, if there are two families, three families of Kashmiris and three families of Bengalis whom they are acquainted with, they will prefer to go to Bengalis, and Kashmiris ko thoda a cosmetic level pe hi they will connect. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
true. That there are many aspects about it. Let's move.
So,
Let's move
just to
rapidly.
sum up
Yeah.
what I was saying was that, which is why I focus on role models more. Which is why I focus on role models more, that people
Yes,
need to know that who we are.
that's what Ashish. That's what I'm also doing in the Shitalath conversations. I'm
Yes,
bringing
of
the
course.
role models. Like I'm bringing RN Cow. People don't know about RN Cow. Jain Koul, everybody knows, but RN Cow के बारे में किसी को पता नहीं. Such a wonderful face. I had Amitabh Mattu. I brought him. The I mean, हम लोगों को एक टिपिकल सा टेंडेंसी है तमसा कोर्रा बटन की है. रोल मॉडल हैज नथिंग टू डू विद इट. अब आशीष इज वर्किंग. वी आर प्राउड ऑफ हिम टुडे. ही इज गोइंग to places. He has been the corporate leader. He's a world leader. He's gone into Hindujas and bazaars, and he's remained as the president and country head. But then again, you can be a role model tomorrow. So role model does not necessarily means he has to be my master boy or pitur boy, and then he will be a role model. Anyway, let's now come very closer to the place we were born as a Sathu boys. Let me talk about the Sheetalnath 1967 का
Parmeshwari.
आंदोलन, परमेश्वरी आंदोलन. इसके बारे में जो आपके the sources, because there will be a number of sources, there are living sources for that, and your family, because they were part of Sheetalnath. And what was your research pattern, and what is the total canvas of the book, and how you portray this book, as you very wonderfully, meticulously explained about the STREE, the issue, about Didda, the warrior queen, about the refugee camp. I want to know about the Sheetalnath 1967 ka Parmeshwari Andolan. Yeah.
Parmeshwari Andolan was, if I may say, it was, how should I put it? It is two faces of the same coin. On one side of the coin is refugee camp, and other face of the refugee camp is
The curtain raiser.
1966.
It's a curtain raiser. I have written it as a
Now,
curtain raiser. Yes.
interestingly, it is the same community. It is the same value system. It is the same community who were told as cowards. 1990 के बाद में, in Jammu you became a Lola, everywhere else you became a coward. आप तो, you are the guys who just withered and you ran away.
तू सुथो नसी आए.
हाँ, कुछ नसी आए, वो लड़ना चाहिए था, ये वो. That is the 1990 narrative. For me, Parmeshwari, it could have been sensational, but Parmeshwari for me was an answer to who we really are. Parmeshwari is the brand ambassadorship of Kashmiri Pandits, of Sattu, that it is the same community when it had the chance. It is the same minuscule community that rallied, that brought Kashmir to a grinding halt. Many
Shook
people
the world.
gave up their
Shook
lives.
the
Yeah.
world. BBC
Shook the
every
world.
day. Yeah.
Sir, for many people, when I'm invited to talk, they get shocked. They don't know the truth, the dark truth of that agitation. That how that the Sheetalnath temple ke bahar, ab to nahi hai,
Lagoon. Yeah.
lagoon, that was poisoned. When it was barricaded, bijli was cut, pani was cut, it was poisoned so that we die. And people, Ratan Rani Hospital is a testimony to what had happened.
Yeah.
Had that
The
hospital not
artificial
been there,
bridge was
there were so many
artificial bridge
people.
was created. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
safety.
now में खाना बेचते थे इधर से उधर. Anyway, So for me, Parmeshwari agitation is the symbol, is the felix of who we are. That when we rally, when we decide, we are not cowards. We are the same community जिसको 1990 में आपने मार के भगाया या circumstances वैसे create किए. When you openly start killing a minuscule community, what will happen? But when face to face, man to man, when there was a fight, we bought you, we rubbed your noses, and you were the guys who wrote to the home minister. What did they write? They wrote to the home minister, we are scared.
Jawan.
We are scared. Please come and save us. They are amassing weapons in the Sheetalnath temple. They will kill us. Please come and save us. And YB Chavan takes a bloody flight into Delhi. He sabotaged. No, that is again wrong. You see, he sabotaged the agitation. Of course, we were responsible for it.
We were responsible. Some people, very well-known faces, yeah.
Were responsible for it. Now, to cut the long story short, to me, that is an answer to the world that we are this community. What we created, we led the largest agitation ever post 1947. If it has happened in India, it has happened on the streets of Srinagar, led by people from Sheetalnath.
Kashmiri Pandits who were just in the minuscule minority.
We were nothing. I mean, dynamics remained the same. We were just a very minuscule community. That is the valor of being a Kashmiri Pandit. So don't call us cowards. Read what
showed
happened.
us legacy. Lalita Ditya, that traverses back to Lalita Ditya, Rani Ditya, some others. That's very wonderful.
So
that is the sole concept.
And incidentally, I happen to be the only person alive who knows where she is and who has met her. So rest is history. So it just cannot be hearsay. You see, when you take I have a position in the society, people take my people respect me for what I say. You can't, you have to know what you're talking about. I had made a parallel investigation, and I raised a query. I got a call from, when state tries to sabotage you, what happens? I got a call from Maharajganj police station because I'd raised an inquiry. Please tell me what happened to the FIR that was filed that time. There was an FIR that was filed. So, what FIR are you talking about? I said, this FIR. But sir, we don't know anything about it. I said, how can you not know anything? Then I realized from his diction, actually, I thought that maybe he's, somebody who has been deputed. He said, sir, हम लोग तो पटना में हैं, हमको कैसे पता होगा कश्मीर के बारे में? Then I realized the query was routed to Maharajganj in Patna. Twice it happened. So this is how state works.
And what is the construct of this complete? I mean, what is the pattern of writing? I mean,
it again has two versions. The version in public domain is a very simplistic story. It is the story about a 16-year-old girl who leaves home.
You have a protagonist. You have a protagonist in that.
It is one of the. It is to keep his identity, private. So it is the whole journey from the eyes of this boy who was part of what was happening, who saw what was happened, and this boy was given a very important responsibility. When the entire mohalla was barricaded, tear gas shells were sprayed, there was a need for a loudspeaker. Back then, I actually wanted to. The title of my book was earlier The Loudspeaker. It was not 1967 Parmeshwari. I kept it loudspeaker, but then everybody felt, because we live in a digital world, because of the keywords and also so that's how I changed. So the responsibility that was given to this boy was the agitation will die. If we don't get a loudspeaker, our voice has to go out of Sheetalnath. So we need a loudspeaker. Now the challenge is, how will the loudspeaker come in, because the entire mohalla is barricaded, there is no electricity, police, paramilitary, everybody's there, nobody's going out, nobody's coming in. That was the rallying point. How this boy gets a loudspeaker inside in a beacon wala red car.
I had 7 episodes on the premise of Sheetalnath conversation. Premise of Sheetalnath. Premise is not premise. Premise of Sheetalnath, and that premise of Sheetalnath, the Kaka Bhaiya, Handu Saab, and Zutshi Saab, and all the 7, 8, 10 people, they all talked about Parmeshwari agitation in their own, how they witnessed it, how the situation was like, and everything. Anyway, it's a very wonderful story,
I in
and
fact
this is
wanted
the
to. There was no just to if it helps. I had access to. There was a gentleman who had given me some photographs. So we were not able to carry those photographs, but maybe in subsequent versions we'll carry those photographs also.
that would be very nice. The photographs, I think there are some photographs, but they are very, torn out.
Yes,
I had some photographs;
yes,
they are very torn
yes.
out, and there
Very
are
torn
many
out.
people who have written the narratives, and most of the narratives are very honest, but it lacks the skills, and the canvas is small. They could not intervene it in a way, I mean, web in a way. I would like to read this, especially if you are sending me the books, then kindly,
Yeah, yeah,
if
will be there.
possible, I
In
can buy
fact,
it out.
why what had happened in the jail to those Kashmiri Pandits? They were urinated upon. They were made to
I
drink
know.
urine. That is what we have gone through, and we still did not leave. It was 1967.
I remember that Maharaj Krishan's, that samadhi, which remained forlorn in that at the corner of Sheetalnath ground, and it was I don't know what is the condition now. I mean, it was the dogs used to go there. It was not barricaded. It was not protected, and all those things. But certainly, Sheetalnath is like the rhythm, the heartbeat of Kashmiri Pandits. The 1967 agitation is a benchmark of what we are. It's a representation of our civilization, the
Yes,
great
that's
civilization you talk about in your books. You have, I mean, corroborated with the evidence, the collaborative evidence as well. Anyway, now let's come to the closure of this program today. We'll have another session certainly. If you have time in the future, we'll see that when you are free, that we'll certainly have a wonderful session again on some book, because I wanted to have a discussion on one of your book. But now, since we had to, we in earlier segment we slightly went into political arena and all that. So those things has happened. What is your as a corporate corporate leader, a great corporate leader of the country, who has worked internationally in the great organizations globally. Uh, just a small, small brief statement from you. What do you think, apart from CSR, apart from the I go and I just conduct these stress management programs in the corporate world as well, and I feel that there's a lot of stress at the all levels in the corporate world, and CSR is just a cosmetic thing. It is happening. Just a small statement from a very big man in the corporate world.
absolutely, absolutely. I would never want my daughter to go into the corporate world. Yeah, and I always say that if you want to live, just live, then join the corporate. If you want to live life, then try and get into civil services, or where
Whatever you like, or medical or profession. Yeah.
whatever she changes. I mean, she has a mind of her own. I know she, for the sake of civility, she does not revolt when I say no, you should try and go into Sarkar more than the
Yes,
private. So
corporate
but
is a,
yes,
it's a very
you see, the fact of corporate life is uh, India has the most regressive corporate culture. Very few companies in India understand the value when they say work life balance. You don't need more than a finger to count the number of companies that really walk the talk. For everything else, there is the form of the lala changes one way or the other. And the objective is very simple कि मुझे इन लोगों से 8 घंटे 9 घंटे 10 घंटे कैसे काम कराना. So it is, and when the shit hits the ceiling, you will find yourself always alone. And I'm telling you this very candidly, because it is not that my life has always been like this. My life has also gone through a camel's hump. Today,
rest and
when I say that I never had a godfather, even in my professional life, whether I have whatever I have done, I never had a godfather. All the achievements I had were because I was able to do them. When I had a bad time, it was only my own courage, my own system that kept me afloat, and my own strength of reinnovating myself. So, going from one strength to the other comes at a cost. I have seen the time when, I suddenly one day I saw my daughter had grown so big, and I realized I had not been home. I'd just been cosmetically home for 3-4 months. But who cares? That's not a very healthy thing, which is why you see today. Earlier, During the 90s, I would know all my friends. I would be in touch with all my friends. I would remember all the numbers. I would remember all the important days. Today, you need a phone and then you need another system to remind you कि तुम्हारा वो दोस्त भी है, ये भी
Correct.
है. You're
Spoon
all
feeding,
full of excuses, and
gadgets.
today you just say you don't have time. But that's all nonsense. You always find time for what is important to you. But it is
Priority.
because of
What
what
priority do
we are
you have?
becoming. This is what this corporate culture is doing to us. It is damaging our humanity. Nobody realizes that this fancy car outside your home, your fancy bank balance, your air conditioned home is our articles in transit. That is never yours. What you do for your community, what you do for your society is something that will remain
Always.
with you and after you. Everything else is in transition. आफ्टर 60-70 आप वो गाड़ी का क्या करोगे? आप आज भी एक ही पलंग पे सोते हो, आज आप डाइटिंग पे जाते हो, वही एक रोटी दो रोटी खाते हो. What are you going to do? Nobody has a clear plan. But that is not that people are bad. It is what
That is
this corporate culture is doing to us.
corporate culture, especially in India, it is regressive. You said a
Yes,
very golden line.
this
It is
this
regressive
corporate
in India.
culture, the biggest, the biggest disease that this corporate culture in India has given us, it has commoditized everything that was human. Our relationships, our affection, our our society, it has commoditized everything. We see it कि इसमें मेरे लिए क्या है. हम किसी के घर में जब जाते थे पहले उससे पूछ के जाते थे.
Society was different that time. Anyway, I think the corporate. I actually this was a question lurking in my mind, and whom else to ask than Ashish here with me. And you have given a very golden line. Corporate culture is very regressive in India. That's true because I also know children in US and other places. They say that even they are always scared of the Indian bosses, Indian system. They say that when we have American bosses, they are so liberal. They say, okay, don't worry, have a leave, don't worry, be joyful. I mean, when there are Indian bosses, because they are probably offshoots from this culture only, this corporate culture only, they show their colors. Anyway, I mean, that's let's not see everything in black and
They
white.
confuse working more with efficiency. That is the whole problem.
Yes, that's true. Our education system is also, I mean, it's very flawed, and I really don't feel good about our education system. Kind of the load these children have. हमारे टाइम में तभी बेटर था यार. चार मतलब वो बुक्स होती थी, 5-7 बुक्स होती थी, वो याद है. वन लाइन बाय लाइन वी रिमेंबर वेदर हम पढ़ते थे या नहीं
Absolutely.
पढ़ते.
I keep telling my daughter whatever I studied in 7th, 8th, whatever little I studied, I remember it.
I went to the SBI, State Bank of India. I was doing some this stress management. I was really, I mean, amazed to see they are even worse than the corporate world. Like, what has happened to the SBI? I had friends in SBI वो चाय पीते थे, मस्ती मारते थे. वहां पे what you call it, वहां क्लब में जाते थे. कौन सा वो होता था वहां पे इन द रीगल चौक, कॉफी हाउस में जाते थे.
Coffee
वहां
house. India coffee house.
खाते पीते थे, वापस आते थे, शाम को 4 बजे छुट्टी होती थी, घर आके बैठते थे, और लोन वोन मिलता था, गाड़ी वाड़ी सबके लिए. मैं क्या, नाउ आई कैन सी they are worse, so suffering, so devastated. Anyway, let's leave it at a good note and a great note. And you were my guest in the Shitlath conversations. I feel very delighted and honored, and with great affection I feel, once again I say that at least whatever you are doing the amazing job, and your book should be read by the all the people, but our community people especially, because I recommend your books because of the methodology of your research, and because of your corroborative evidence. That's very important, because we, even in our community, our fictions or fantasies, they are slightly I won't say they are parochial. They are limited. They don't have a wider exposure and a dimension, open up dimensions, and they're not very regressive. They have not been created by a lot of hard work and lot of insights and lot of work. Thank you very much, Ashish ji. You came, and it was really a great honor to be with you, and best of
The honor
wishes.
was absolutely mine, and thank you for taking me back to my family.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. So that was Ashish Kaul, the business leader, the corporate leader, the top-notch corporate leader who is into the writing one of the best books of our times, that traverses across the civilization in this part of the country known as Kashmir, and those books are doing very well, and it had been reviewed very well by the great reviewers and critics across the country and the globe. And I think we all must read these books and just see, because he's a youngster, he's a younger personality, and he has his methodologies, his research, his analysis, his corroborative evidence, and that is something which is very honest, which makes it most authentic and most to be read document. Thank you very much for tonight, and we'll meet again in future, maybe next week or maybe next to next week. And good night. Thanks a lot.